Having spent a lifetime together with my husband, I was reborn back to my college days. Excitedly, I ran to find him, only to see him standing downstairs at the dormitory, confessing to the class beauty, "Missing you would be the greatest regret of my life." Here begins the main text. Guqiao, you've been standing in front of the mirror for at least half an hour. What are you doing? Of course, I'm admiring my beauty. I gazed at the slender, graceful girl in the mirror, with her tiny waist, long legs, fair and tender skin, and not a single wrinkle on her face. Is this what I looked like at 18? Being young is truly wonderful. Stop being smug. It's lively downstairs. Jiangchen is waiting at the door with flowers, not sure who he is going to confess to. My roommate Dina pushed the door open, holding a cup of milk tea, her eyebrows dancing as she shared the gossip with me. Jiangchen, I slapped my forehead, so caught up in admiring my young and beautiful body that I had forgotten about my husband. I threw on a coat and ran down to the dormitory building. Jiangchen must have been reborn with me. His body has become young again, and his mindset has followed suit, even knowing to send flowers now. The last time he sent me flowers, it seems, was the year I gave birth to little Treasure. This time, it's the first time he's given me flowers, supposedly to thank me for continuing the Jiang family lineage. Thinking of little Treasure, I touched my flat stomach, still sporting a six-pack. Little Treasure, let mommy enjoy a few more happy years. I'll savor my youth for a few more years before bringing you into the world. Jiangchen and I were campus sweethearts, walking together from university to the altar. We've argued, broken up, fought, been poor, struggled, gotten rich, and even gone bankrupt. At our poorest, we lived together in a basement, eating plain steamed buns with boiled water every meal. When we craved something flavorful, we'd buy a pack of pickled vegetables. When we were wealthy, we bought a villa, and Jiangchen even bought houses for his parents and siblings. We supported each other, stumbling and bumping along, hand in hand, through life. In our previous life, we were too busy with entrepreneurship and making money. By the time we turned old, we realized we had focused solely on work without truly living or earnestly seeing the world. This time around, we must travel more and accomplish all the things we wanted to do but never had the time or energy for. Jiangchen stood at the dormitory door holding a bouquet of flowers. Perhaps due to nervousness, his hand rested on his pants, with his middle finger incessantly picking at the seam. I chuckled. That year we graduated, the two of us started an e-commerce company together. Jiangchen was introverted and quiet, not adept at socializing, and had a bit of social anxiety. For the sake of business, he forced himself to learn how to make small talk, and this habit was formed during that time. Great, Jiangchen really did reincarnate with me. Guqiao, what are you looking at? My roommate and best friend Zhou Xiaoxi poked my arm and also curiously looked towards the door. At that moment, Jiangchen just happened to turn his head, and sunlight bathed his young and handsome face. His eyes sparkled with tiny golden lights. Seeing me, he shyly pursed his lips into a smile, revealing two faint dimples. 18-year-old Jiangchen always makes my heart race. Jiangchen walked towards me holding a bouquet of flowers, just like in my previous life. His every step, my whole lifetime. I took a deep breath, spread my arms, and prepared to embrace the happiness that belongs to me once again. Zhou Xiaoxi, I've liked you for a long time. Missing you would be the biggest regret of my life. Will you give me a chance to be my girlfriend? Zhou Xiaoxi was clearly flustered, her face flushed as she glanced around, noticing many classmates watching the scene, starting to cheer. Say yes, say yes, say yes. I awkwardly retracted my hand, only to realize that Jiangchen was intently gazing at Zhou Xiaoxi. His eyes were straightforward and passionate, and amidst the bustling world, he only saw her, standing beside Zhou Xiaoxi. I felt like a mere white backdrop, as Jiangchen didn't even spare a glance in my direction. So, Jiangchen, who was my husband for a lifetime, actually liked Zhou Xiaoxi all along. I staggered back 2 steps, and memories from my previous life flooded my mind. That day, a light rain fell, and I was in a hurry to go out and collect a package. Zhou Xiaoxi said that she had left my umbrella at the library and insisted on giving me her coat and hat to wear. She said, "This coat is waterproof, and it's cold outside. You'll catch a cold if you get wet." Dressed in her clothes, I rushed out, only to bump into Jiangchen as soon as I stepped out of the dormitory. He lowered his head and grabbed my arm. "I like you, be my girlfriend." I had liked Jiangchen for a long time. I fell for him as soon as the semester started. The boy I had been secretly in love with for so long confessed to me in the rain, and that's when I began to love rainy days. No wonder Jiangchen rarely took the initiative to message me or invite me out after we got together. I thought he was just introverted and didn't like anything too sentimental. Most importantly, I was so dazzled by this unexpected blessing that I threw myself headlong into this relationship, blinded by passionate love. How ironic, Jiangchen must have mistaken me for Zhou Xiaoxi back then, right? That's why the first thing he did after being reborn was to start a new life with Zhou Xiaoxi all over again. He just couldn't resist the eternal white moonlight in his heart. I took a step back, then another. Jiangchen anxiously awaited Zhou Xiaoxi's response, excited. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, and one dripped down past his eyebrows and into his eye, yet he forced his eyes wide open, afraid that a blink might cause him to miss Zhou Xiaoxi's reply, and my heart felt as if it had been weighed down by a heavy weight, or as if I had swallowed a mouthful of ice on a bitterly cold day. How rare, in our previous life, even when we went to meet our most important client together, Jiangchen wasn't this nervous. When I was giving birth, his parents insisted on a natural delivery, saying a cesarean would be bad for the baby, but Xiaobao had absorbed nutrients well, and the doctor estimated he weighed over 7 pounds. Given the size of the baby, the doctor recommended a cesarean. I lay pale on the bed, gripping Jiangchen's hand, and asked him, "I'm about to give birth. Are you nervous?" Jiangchen merely said indifferently, "Modern medicine is very advanced. Don't worry unnecessarily." After saying that, he sat down to play a game. I was extremely angry at the time, but when I came out of the operating room after giving birth, he presented me with a bouquet of flowers. That's just how Jiangchen is. He slaps you and then gives you a piece of candy. Giving birth, no tension. Meeting clients, no tension. His son taking the college entrance exam, no tension. Even when his son got married, he wasn't tense. But this time, for a confession, why was he so nervous? Having lived 2 lifetimes, I looked intently at Jiangchen, the man I had loved my entire life. His face overlapped with the shadow in my memory, shattering the beautiful dream I had cherished for a lifetime. Together, the world around me was noisy and chaotic, the sounds coming and going, and the figures in front of me overlapping. I pinched the palm of my hand. It seemed I was a bit sunstruck. I need to think about it some more. Faced with the crowds teasing and gathering around, Zhou Xiaoxi felt flustered. She glanced around the crowd and finally cast a pleading look in my direction. At that moment, Jiangchen finally noticed me. Holding the flowers, he strode toward me and then firmly grasped my arm. "Guqiao, that's great. You're here too. You're closest to Zhou Xiaoxi, so please help me persuade her. I've really liked her for many years. I promise I will treat Zhou Xiaoxi very well in the future. Please, help me out." The brilliant sunset cast a soft golden glow over Jiangchen. I looked at his half-lit, half-shadowed silhouette against the light, and memories pulled me back to the year we started our business. We finished work at the company late into the night. The buses and subways had stopped running, and taking a taxi was out of the question. Our place was quite far from the office, and 30 yuan was enough for 2 days of living expenses. On the winter streets, the cold made our toes numb. I exhaled warm breath as I walked with Jiangchen, feeling an unstoppable joy in my heart. Life was tough and difficult, but I wasn't walking alone. Someone I loved was by my side, and the future looked promising and bright. Jiangchen rarely took the initiative to hold my hand. He thanked me for being willing to endure hardships with him, promised to give me a better life in the future, and said he loved me. "You liar, liar. This is between us two. Why are you making things difficult for Guqiao?" A clear voice rang out. Zhou Xiaoxi stepped forward, linked her arm with mine, and slightly raised her chin towards Jiangchen with a reserved demeanor. "I still need to think about this. You should go back first. Come on, Guqiao, let's go eat." After saying that, Zhou Xiaoxi pulled the dazed me away, leaving behind a similarly distraught Jiangchen. Zhou Xiaoxi stretched out her hand and waved it in front of my eyes. "Your noodles will get mushy if you don't eat them soon. You look so troubled. What's wrong with you?" I bit my chopsticks, feeling a mix of emotions. "You're not going to accept Jiangchen, are you?" After asking cautiously, I felt utterly ridiculous. Reborn into my college years, Jiangchen and I were both free, legally speaking. He owed me nothing. The promises made in our previous life were just that, from another lifetime. Neither of us were husband and wife, nor were we lovers now. He certainly had the right to pursue happiness anew, but if he says one word and you have to agree, what does that make me? Men, you know, they only cherish what they can't get. Let's give him a couple of days to cool off and see how he performs. Zhou Xiaoxi said this nonchalantly. Many boys pursued her, and while Jiangchen was handsome, he wasn't exactly a world-class heartthrob. I took a sip of my noodle soup, trying to suppress the bitterness in my heart, and couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy toward Zhou Xiaoxi. Zhou Xiaoxi came from a well-off family. Her father owned a company, and her mother was a civil servant. Unlike Jiangchen and me, who grew up in rural areas, Zhou Xiaoxi had the confidence and pride typical of city kids. The things I yearned for and could never obtain were commonplace for her. Jiang Chen wasn't deterred by Zhou Xiaoxi's rejection. After all, having lived through another lifetime, his mental fortitude had grown significantly. He began showing up every day at our dormitory, lavishing Zhou Xiaoxi with various gifts, flowers, milk tea, snacks, fried chicken. Those of us in the dormitory felt indebted to him for the free food, and we started teasing Zhou Xiaoxi. From the initial heartbreak and sorrow to anger and resentment, my emotions quickly leveled out within just a few days. Jiangchen hadn't even considered that I might be reincarnated as well. He looked at me as if I were a complete stranger. To avoid any misunderstandings from Zhou Xiaoxi, he even went so far as to block me on his phone. 60 years of mutual dependence, and not even a trace of love. Could there not even be any affection? It was only then that I realized how terribly wrong I had been. I loved Jiangchen my entire life. While he probably endured me for all those years, we got together young due to a misunderstanding, and he, being shy, never had the heart to bring up breaking up. Later, I helped him so much that even the betrothal money for our wedding came out of my own pocket. He felt indebted and couldn't bring himself to say anything. This long life of mine was a beautiful fairy tale, but for Jiangchen, it was a suffocating prison. He didn't love me, yet he couldn't leave me. Now that he's finally escaped from that cage, why would he want to get entangled with me again? Xiaoxi, you really aren't going to accept Jiangchen? Dinah gnawed on a chicken claw that Jiangchen had bought, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Zhou Xiaoxi was applying a face mask and dared not speak loudly, her voice barely audible, as if squeezed from her throat. This is just the beginning. The Red Army had a 25,000 li long march. Of course, we need to thoroughly test a man. I was engrossed in my book when a question suddenly popped into my mind. Where did Jiangchen get the money to buy all these things? Damn it, I suddenly remembered that our class had an annual scholarship with a substantial amount of money, 10,000 yuan for the winner. Over the years, I had always given this scholarship to Jiangchen. As two students from poor rural backgrounds, my grades had always been better than his, and my family's situation was even worse than his. The counselor had even suggested to me that I was the most suitable candidate for the scholarship, but seeing Jiangchen's perpetually faded genes, I had still chosen to give him the scholarship, opting to earn my living expenses through part-time jobs instead. Now, all I wanted to do was give myself a couple of hard slaps. The scholarship had just been awarded, so of course Jiangchen had money, and he was using it all to chase after Zhou Xiaoxi. I thought about it, then angrily stood up, snatching the chicken feet from Dana's hand. I want to eat too. Dana was startled. What? Are you really that hungry? Eat, 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 have them all. Oh, right, Gu Qiao. The school just introduced a new Alumni Association scholarship this time. Do you know about it? I gnawed on a chicken claw and suddenly slapped my thigh. How could I have forgotten about this? There was a senior from our department, Pei Ning, who had graduated 2 years ago and successfully started his own business. It was said that he had raised several hundred million in funding. This time, he happened to be collaborating with our school on a research project and, on a whim, decided to sponsor 2 students from our department. One of the spots went to a class next door, and the other fell to Jiangchen. Of course, I had given it to him. Unlike the school's scholarships, Pei Ning's scholarship covered all 4 years of tuition and living expenses. This money later became the startup capital for Jiangchen's business after graduation. I spat out the chicken claw and rushed toward the counselor's office. In my previous life, I had voluntarily withdrawn from the competition by telling the counselor, but this time, I absolutely could not miss the opportunity. I ran all the way to the counselor's office, leaning against the doorframe, gasping for breath. Inside, a tall, straight figure stood, silhouetted against the light, not quite clear, but the voice was a familiar, icy calm. Teacher, Gu Qiao has already given up this spot, so let me have it. By the time I caught my breath, I wished I could turn my gaze into daggers and stab Jiangchen to death. Wait, teacher, I still want to fight for this spot. The counselor's eyes lit up when she saw me. Oh, Gu Qiao, you've finally come around. That's the right attitude. Working every day really affects your studies. With your talent, you should focus more on your academics. Jiangchen looked at me in disbelief. Clearly my actions had exceeded his expectations. Gu Qiao, aren't you usually against taking scholarships? Seeing Jiangchen so close, my heart involuntarily contracted sharply. Unfortunately, I really need this money. Could you give me this opportunity? Jiangchen lowered his head and gazed intently into my beautiful eyes. My eyes drooped, my expression carrying a hint of pleading. I couldn't resist Jiangchen when he looked like this. In the past, whenever he showed this expression, even if it was the moon in the sky, I would find a way to pluck it for him. Gu Qiao, help me. Okay, this phrase felt so familiar. In our long yet fleeting lives, he had said it many times. Gu Qiao, my younger brother is getting married, and as his sister-in-law, you wouldn't bear to see him remain a bachelor for life. would you? Gu Qiao, my sister is getting married, but her fiancé's conditions are not good. Buying her a house will allow her to hold her head high in her husband's family. Gu Qiao, my parents are getting old, and I want them to move in with us so we can take better care of them with each. Gu Qiao, you're the best. I kept giving in, kept compromising, and so, I became the one in the Gu family with the worst health. Due to overwork and pushing myself too hard, I developed stomach issues, a herniated disc, cervical spondylosis, and frozen shoulder. Jiangchen, you can't say things like that. For the past 2 years, Gu Qiao has been the one giving up her scholarship spot for you. Her grades and overall evaluation scores are much higher than yours, and her family situation is not good. Her parents don't want her to continue her education, they just want her to get married. Every year, she earns her tuition and living expenses by working part-time. As classmates, we can't only think about ourselves. In every aspect, Gu Qiao deserves this scholarship more than you do. The counselor glared at me with a look of disappointment, trying to stop me from speaking with a fierce stare. In my previous life, Jiangchen and I held our wedding in his rural hometown. The counselor took a day-long train ride just to come and give me a big red envelope. On our wedding day, he held my hand, his eyes red with emotion, and said, Gu Qiao, you need to learn to love yourself. Having lived 2 lives, it was only at this moment that I truly understood the meaning of those words. In my previous life, Jiangchen was the brightest light in my dark world, my salvation, and my hope, but in this life, I want to be my own light. We left the office, each lost in our own thoughts. Jiangchen glanced at me repeatedly. He frowned and scrutinized me closely, his gaze probing, and it seemed extremely rude. Unable to bear it any longer, I turned around. What are you looking at? Why did you suddenly change your mind? Jiangchen asked tentatively. I found it a bit amusing. Since you're so dismissive of your past life and have decided to start anew, I naturally can't continue to let you have your way and help you in everything, because, Jiangchen blinked, looking somewhat bewildered. I never cry about my hardships in front of him. No matter what situation I encounter, I always smile and say, I'm fine, I'm doing great. Obviously, my behavior is a stark contrast to who I was before my rebirth. Xiaobo, you're here too. I looked around and met Jiangchen's gaze, which clearly said, as expected, Gu Qiao, have you been reborn too? I neither denied nor admitted, simply giving Jiangchen a deep look before striding forward. Hey, no, Gu Qiao, why are you getting angry? Since that's the case, let's just lay all our cards on the table. My attitude infuriated Jiangchen. After all, I had pampered him for a lifetime, rarely ever treating him so coldly. I sat on the bench by the school lake with Jiangchen. The sunlight shimmered on the water's surface, like a thin layer of golden foil scattered across it. The scenery was beautiful, but I had no heart to appreciate it, because Jiangchen said, the happiness of my previous life was stolen by me. I've already endured for you my whole life and paid for my mistakes. What's wrong with pursuing someone I like in this life? Jiangchen was clearly a bit agitated. He stiffened his neck and glared at me, as if I were the root of all his misfortunes. I couldn't help but laugh in anger. Jiangchen, since you don't like me, why didn't you say so at the beginning? You didn't say it in college, you didn't say it before we got married, and you never brought it up in all these years. Did I hold a gun to your head and force you to marry me? Jiangchen became even angrier. It's all your fault. Right after you confessed, you immediately told your roommate, Dana, that big mouth, directly announced it in the class group chat, saying I had to treat everyone. If I had broken up with you right away, what would the classmates have said about me? After we got together, everyone kept saying how good you were to me. It seemed like if I ever broke up with you, I would become the heartless scoundrel everyone condemns. Gu Qiao, all of this is because of you. You put me on a moral pedestal and coerced me with conscience and morality for a lifetime. In my memory, Jiangchen was handsome. His fair skin and sharp features made him shine. He was the most beautiful young man, middle-aged man, and elderly man I had ever seen. I squinted and scanned every inch of Jiangchen's face, and for the first time, I noticed that although his skin was white, it was a bit dull, and there were 2 pimples on his chin. His nose was high but a bit broad, making him look less refined. The shining Jiangchen was, after all, just an ordinary student who was slightly more handsome. The light around him came from my love, not from himself. If that's the case, let's pretend we never met in this lifetime. Let's not contact each other anymore. Goodbye. I stood up and turned to leave. Something inside me collapsed, leaving behind a desolate ruin. I come from a rural family with an extreme preference for boys. My parents believed that having a daughter was a huge loss, and they tried every possible way to recoup that loss from me. When I was in middle school, my Parents mentioned more than once that I should go straight to work as soon as I graduated. To escape the fate of working in a factory, I studied relentlessly and eventually ranked first in the city to get into No. 1 high school. The school waived all my tuition and miscellaneous fees and promised to give me a scholarship. The village head and local leaders also visited my parents several times, urging them to let me continue my education. After finishing high school, my parents said that I could go to college, but I had to send them 2,000 yuan every month. I agreed without hesitation and then found an excuse to transfer my household registration to the school. After completing the transfer, I blocked all my parents' contact information. They had never traveled far from home, and since they didn't care about me, they didn't even know my major or class. With the help of the village head, I finally managed to completely break free from my parents. During college, I became someone without a family, so I desperately longed for a home, for love. In my previous life, I clung tightly to Jiangchen, like a drowning person grasping at a floating log. I wanted a home so desperately. Even when Jiangchen wasn't kind to me at times, it was still 100 times better than what my parents offered. In my rural home, I didn't even have my own room. My bed was placed in a corner of the living room, with no privacy or dignity. I was so eager to repay Jiangchen for even a shred of kindness that I would have given my life for him. Only now do I understand that I shouldn't have sought love from outside. I should have learned to love myself. No one but yourself can be your savior. I ran forward with big strides, leaving all the past and darkness behind. In the end, I did receive the scholarship. My counselor said that the senior, Pei Ning, who was awarding the scholarship, wanted to meet me. It was him. It really was him. I stared, dumbfounded, at the familiar man before me. He was one of the investors in our company, and after the company went bankrupt and closed down, it was he who injected funds to save us. After I married Jiangchen, he disappeared from our lives. I never expected to see him again, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. Hello, Senior Pei. Thank you, Senior Pei. My earnest bow seemed to amuse him. Please sit down. Meeting Pei Ning was delightful, and we exchanged contact information. He said I could reach out to him for any difficulties in life. I walked back to the dormitory with a happy heart. A small favor deserves a great return. Pei Ning had helped me greatly in my previous life, and in this life, he remains my benefactor. I had spent my entire career in e-commerce, and now was just the nascent stage of e-commerce. Pei Ning's company hadn't yet formed an e-commerce team, and I could help him with that, as a way of repaying the favor. In a good mood, I generously bought a bag of fruits and snacks back to the dormitory, planning to treat my roommates. Upon returning to the dorm, I found 2 large bags of KFC on Zhou Xiaoxi's desk. Seeing me, Zhou Xiaoxi generously handed me a hamburger and 2 egg tarts. Didn't have lunch. Did you eat them while they're hot? Dana winked at me from the side. Eat up, it's Shibao. I blinked in confusion. What treasure? Oh, Xiaoxi and Jiangchen are together now. Zhou Xiaoxi shot a playful glare at Dana. Eat up, even a chicken leg can't keep your mouth shut. I looked at Zhou Xiaoxi in surprise. She was dating Jiangchen, and Zhou Xiaoxi glanced at me, a bit embarrassed. We lived in the same dormitory, spending almost 24 hours together. My unspoken feelings for Jiangchen might have escaped others, but they couldn't escape Zhou Xiaoxi, who slept right across from me. The 2 hardest things to hide in the world are coughing and love. Zhou Xiaoxi smoothed her hair and gave an awkward smile. Gu Qiao, you're not upset, are you? I offered a genuinely sincere smile. What are you talking about? Of course not, we're friends, and that's what matters. The past is dark and untraceable. The future is bright and splendid. Jiangchen is just a thing of the past now. All I want to do now is study hard and work hard to earn money. Dinner was with Jiangchen. He wanted to treat the entire dorm to hot pot. At the table, he was extremely attentive to Zhou Xiaoxi, pulling out chairs, pouring water, and peeling shrimp. Zhou Xiaoxi was a bit touched but also embarrassed. She kept glancing at me, worried that I might be upset, but I just kept my head buried in my bowl, shoveling in slices of beef, tripe, and duck intestines. When I was with Jiangchen, we were both poor students. I hated spending his money, so every date was either spicy hot pot or fast food, and afterward, we would split the bill. There weren't many opportunities for Jiangchen to treat us. I had to eat a lot, maybe even make up for what I missed out on in my previous life. Before, I always thought sincerity could be exchanged for sincerity, but now I know that you can't exchange human hearts for dog hearts. When the bill came for dinner, Jiangchen paid over 500 yuan. Normally, that would be about half a month's living expenses for him. In our later years, we lived comfortably, and he was used to spending money freely, so he probably hasn't adjusted to the fact that he can't make money as easily now. I wonder how he'll feel when he realizes That everyone thought that being reborn meant having the key to wealth, but now we're college sophomores, and even if we emptied both our pockets, we couldn't scrape together 1,000 yuan. Stock trading, I do remember a few high-performing stocks that soared dozens of times, but in the short term, there isn't much change. Buying a house is even more distant, as we can barely afford meals, let alone the money to buy a home. Jiang Chen's family situation is actually quite similar to mine, except that he's a boy and the eldest son, so his parents spent all the family's money on him. Which is why his current situation is a bit better than mine. I started spending every day in the library, seriously working on a plan. Pei Ning owns a small smart home appliance company, which is currently only sold in major malls. As a seasoned e-commerce professional, I know that time is opportunity, and the earlier you enter the market, the bigger slice of the pie you can get. In my previous life, when I ran a company with Jiang Chen, I was in charge of operations and sales, while he handled after sales and factory coordination, so I was quite familiar with making plans. In just a few days, a thick business plan was completed. Did you make this? Pei Ning sat comfortably in the chair, flipping through my proposal page by page with great seriousness. I stared at his handsome face, feeling a bit nervous. In my previous life, although I had struggled all my life and achieved some small success, at best, I was just a little better off than the average person. Pei Ning, on the other hand, was the real deal. If I could gain his approval and hitch a ride on his massive ship, the achievements of this life would definitely reach new heights. It's not bad. Our team is already preparing to set up the e-commerce department. Come to my company for an internship when you don't have classes. Really? Thank you, senior. I clenched my fists, my eyes shining as I looked at Pei Ning. Great. All the hard work during this period has finally paid off. Hello, this is your order. Cheesecake, vanilla milk, and strawberry waffles. This is the only cafe near our school, and everything here is overpriced. I accompanied Zhou Xiaoxi here once. I was stunned as the waiter brought out a full table of cakes. Pei Ning adjusted the creases on his sleeve, stood up, and said, "All right, I have something to attend to and need to leave. Eat more, little girl. You're so thin." Pei Ning left. With the proposal I had painstakingly prepared in hand, I curled up in my chair, nibbling on the cake bit by bit. The cheesecake was soft and fluffy, with a rich, creamy flavor that was truly sweet. What did you say? Jiang Chen asked you for money? Dinah stared at Zhou Xiaoxi in shock, and I was also a bit surprised. After my initial surprise, I couldn't help but feel a bit of understanding. Jiang Chen's habit had been nurtured by me. Back then, I worked very hard, while he spent most of his time in the library after classes, so, towards the end, I actually had more financial leeway than him and often gave him money to help him out. He felt embarrassed to accept it, so I told him it was a loan. Jiang Chen and I were each other's first loves, and after we got together, we didn't interact with other members of the opposite sex. Jiang Chen probably thought that in such an intimate relationship, borrowing money from each other was normal, just like borrowing from a good friend. How much did he ask you to borrow? How could he even bring it up? How long have you two even been together? Dinah grabbed Zhou Xiaoxi's arm, her face revealing her astonishment. It's not much, just 1,000 yuan, Zhou Xiaoxi said with a pout. He said he put all his scholarship money into stocks. Jiang Chen had never been involved with stocks during his university days, if I remember correctly. It wasn't until we were in our 40s and financially comfortable that he started to look into investment and financial management. Could he really remember the ups and downs of stocks from his college days? What do you mean? Not much. 1,000 yuan is almost a month's living expenses. It's only because you're well off that you don't think it's much. Zhou Xiaoxi also seemed a bit upset. Of course, I wouldn't lend him money. What kind of man borrows money from a woman? If you don't have money, don't date. He's been buying me this and that recently, and now he actually expects me to foot the bill. That's too funny. I silently lowered my head and continued reading, not knowing how long Jiang Chen and Zhou Xiaoxi's relationship would last. The next day, there were no classes, so I got up early. Pei Ning's company wasn't far from the school, but taking the bus still took over an hour. I was sitting in my seat listening to an English recitation on my phone when a familiar figure boarded the bus. Jiang Chen stormed toward me, then yanked my headphones off and shouted, "Gu Qiao, did you put Zhou Xiaoxi up to breaking up with me? Is this guy out of his mind?" I snatched my headphones back and rolled my eyes dramatically. "Jiang Chen, can you just stay away from me? Running into you this early in the morning is such bad luck for me." Jiang Chen's beautiful eyes seemed to be shooting flames. "I thought we made it clear that day. I've always liked Zhou Xiaoxi. What happened between us before was just a misunderstanding. Can you stop being so petty and stop trying to ruin our relationship? Are you being a bit too narcissistic? Who would even bother to sabotage your Relationship, you're the one who asked Zhou Xiaoxi for a loan, which scared her off. What does that have to do with me? Jiangchen was taken aback. A loan? She broke up with me because of a loan. But what's wrong with borrowing money? I wasn't planning not to pay it back. I didn't respond to his words but instead patted the shoulder of the boy sitting in front of me. Hey, classmate, I have a question. I just started dating a guy 2 weeks ago, and he's already asking me for $1,000. What do you think I should do? The boy immediately frowned. What kind of man would ask a woman for money? Classmate, get your head straight. If he really likes you, he'd rather beg on the streets than ask you for help. That's the most basic dignity and responsibility a man should have. Take my advice. Break up with that guy as soon as possible. Jiangchen looked utterly devastated. Sitting there in a daze, he turned to me, his eyes blank. But before, didn't you often lend me money too? I forced a wry smile, my lips curling in a bitter smirk, because I was stupid. That was the honest truth. Only now did I realize that in my previous life, my wholehearted devotion to Jiangchen and his family had only served to move myself and enrich them. I had always thought that if I treated someone well, they would be grateful. If they weren't, it was because I hadn't been good enough. It wasn't until reality gave me a harsh lesson that I understood. My self-sacrificing devotion, my lifetime of giving, was nothing more than a great regret in Jiangchen's eyes. Jiangchen remained silent, turning his head towards the window. We both remained quiet for the entire journey, not speaking to each other. Why are you following me? Jiangchen turned his head, looking at me with annoyance. I glared back at him with even more annoyance. Who's following you? I'm going to my internship. Unexpectedly, Jiangchen and I ended up at the same company. Pei Ning personally welcomed us and assigned both of us to the e-commerce department. Jiangchen was quite surprised to see Pei Ning. As soon as Pei Ning left, he let out a cold laugh. Gu Qiao, after another lifetime, you've learned to be a gold digger, clinging to the thigh of a wealthy patron, where even time always flies when you're working hard. The team leader of the operations group treated me with great courtesy, changing my title from Little Gu to Gu Qiao, and then to Xiao Qiao. I felt that if I stayed any longer, he might start calling me Teacher Gu. Jiang Chen, however, didn't receive such treatment. Like the other new interns, he was only assigned menial tasks like printing and photocopying documents. After all, Jiangchen was best at after-sales service, and in e-commerce, after-sales isn't exactly a field with particularly high technical demands. I am thriving in my internship life. Pei Ning's internship salary is quite generous, and coupled with the scholarship he funds, I no longer need to rely on part-time jobs to cover my tuition and living expenses. This allows me to dedicate more time to my studies, making my life busy yet fulfilling. Jiangchen, on the other hand, managed to secure an internship at the company through his relationship with the counselor, but he doesn't come in very often because he spends a lot of time dating. Through his efforts to make amends, he and Zhou Xiaoxi have reconciled. Jiangchen values this relationship deeply and puts in every ounce of energy to maintain it. Dating is an activity that is both expensive and time-consuming. He accompanies Zhou Xiaoxi shopping, watching movies, and going on dates, not to mention all the birthdays, Christmas, and Valentine's days, where money flows out like water. Gradually, Jiangchen starts to feel the financial strain. He attempts to take Zhou Xiaoxi to cheaper restaurants, but after just one visit, she quarrels with him. Isn't Jiangchen ridiculous? I spend 2 hours doing my makeup, washing my hair, and changing into new clothes, and he takes me to eat mala hot pot. The place is so smoky, and after sitting there for a while, I smell like grease all over my body and hair. He clearly looks down on me. Zhou Xiaoxi slammed her bag down on the table, her eyes red with anger. I was buried in a book, and upon hearing this, I looked up in confusion and asked, "Isn't it okay to go on a date for mala hot pot?" Zhou Xiaoxi stepped forward and pinched my cheeks. "Are you stupid? He's taking me for mala hot pot," which means in his heart, I'm only worth a bowl of mala hot pot. Today it's mala hot pot, tomorrow it'll be plain boiled buns. Besides, if dating only means eating mala hot pot, then isn't being single better? Why even date? Lowering the quality of life is absolutely not acceptable. Zhou Xiaoxi's views on love were vastly different from mine, and my own beliefs were shaken. After all, in my concept, dating was about mutual giving and sharing both joy and hardship. What about people who are really poor? How do they date? Zhou Xiaoxi rolled her eyes. When you're already so poor, of course, the priority is to find ways to make money. Dating costs both money and time. When you can barely afford to eat, how can you even think about dating? Besides, if a man truly loves a woman, which man would be willing to let her live a hard life with him? Seeing my dazed expression, Zhou Xiaoxi pulled a chair over and sat across from me, starting to lecture me earnestly. "Gu Qiao, don't be foolish. People always say that men have 3 great joys, getting promoted, getting rich, and losing their wife. Why would they want to lose their wife when they get rich? Naturally, it's to find a younger and prettier one. Do you think that by accompanying a man through hard times and struggling together, he'll be grateful to you? He'll only think he's amazing and has charisma. Once he gets rich, the first one he'll get rid of is you, because you've seen him at his most pathetic. He won't even have the confidence to brag in front of you anymore. Isn't that right? The first thing Jiangchen did after being reborn and becoming young again was to replace me, his old wife. I held Zhou Xiaoxi's hand. Keep talking if you've got more to say. In our previous life, although we lived in the same dormitory, we rarely had time to chat, as I was always working part-time jobs. Every day, I would rush around the shops near the school entrance, always carrying a backpack and hurrying. By the time my roommates were still asleep, I had already left. When I rushed back to the dormitory at night, they were all preparing to sleep. Life went on at its own leisurely pace. Zhou Xiaoxi and Jiangchen would argue every other day, while I poured all my energy into studying and working. Soon, summer vacation arrived, and I applied to stay in the dormitory as usual. I hadn't returned to my parents' home for 2 years. In our previous life, when we got married, they demanded a dowry of 300,000 yuan from Jiangchen, threatening to go to his village with a loudspeaker if he didn't pay, so that his parents would never be able to hold their heads high again. Although I ended up paying that money myself, my parents' actions made me feel deeply ashamed in front of Jiangchen. Back then, Jiangchen gave me immense encouragement. He said that although my parents were not good, he would always treat me well. He promised to give me a real home. The debt of parental love I had already repaid in my previous life. This time, I owe nothing to anyone. I worked myself to the bone, even going to the company every weekend, almost wishing I could sleep there. My colleagues all came to advise me, especially our team leader, Xiao Qiao. Even though you're young, you should still take care of your health. Are you having any difficulties in your life? Don't worry. If you have any problems, just tell me. Anything that can be solved with money is not a big deal. I found myself torn between laughter and tears as I declined. As a result, this matter even caught the attention of Pei Ning. Holding the bonus, I stared blankly at the 300,000 on the check. Boss, is the bonus really this much? The company is full of young people, and the atmosphere is great. Everyone calls Pei Ning boss, and over time, I started joining in the fun. Pei Ning nodded. You're worth it. Back then, houses in many prefecture-level cities were only around 3,000 to 4,000 per square meter. The bonus Pei Ning gave was enough to buy a whole house. The head of the e-commerce department gets a sales commission. From now on, whatever Lao Su gets, you'll get the same. I gasped. Lao Su is our team leader, a graduate from a prestigious university with a degree in computer science. While I was only entering my junior year after the summer break, the key point was that the commission was really high, at least several million a year. I opened my mouth, wanting to refuse but unable to let go, standing there in a state of inner turmoil. Pei Ning walked over and gently patted the top of my head. I told you, you're worth this much. Dazed, I walked out of the office, struck dumb by the unexpected windfall. Was there any boss in the world more generous than Pei Ning? Absolutely not. Gu Qiao, do you want to buy a few virtual currencies to play around with? I was still lost in the dream of earning millions annually when our team leader tapped me on the shoulder. What currency? Bitcoin. It's newly emerged, and I find it quite interesting. Bitcoin, the currency that started at just a few cents and later skyrocketed to $140,000 each, so I invested the entire $300,000 check into Bitcoin. In total, I ended up with 500,000 Bitcoins. While it wasn't necessary to buy so many, it would be difficult to sell them in large quantities later. With 500,000 Bitcoins, what else would I ever need to worry about in my life? Life suddenly felt filled with endless confidence. The future me is already a billionaire, so what do I have to fear? Of course, work still needs to be done. No matter how wealthy the future may be, right now, I still need to eat and buy a house. Brother, I finally found you. I was seriously reviewing the operational report when suddenly, the sound of a baby crying abruptly echoed through the office. Jiang Taohua, why are you here? Jiangchen stood up nervously, his face turning bright red. Brother, something's happened at home. Everyone in the office stood up. Jiang Taohua was only 19 years old, and with her baby face, she looked like a high school student at first glance. A high school student holding a baby was an odd sight, no matter how you looked at it. Jiangchen, with a stern expression, pulled Jiang Taohua out of the office. I remember now, something did happen to Jiangchen's family a year ago. His father broke his leg while working at a construction site, and it was quite serious. At the time, I even helped cover some of the medical expenses. But why is Jiang Taohua here with her child? Taohua is a traditional rural girl who dropped out of middle school to work and support her younger brother's education. After a few years of working, she fell in love with a boy from the village and got married early, starting a family. The Jiang family received a betrothal gift of 100,000 yuan, but the dowry was only 3 quilts, so, after the marriage, Tao's life was quite difficult. However, she was extremely proud of her older brother, who attended a prestigious university, constantly referring to him as brother. Jiang Chen's younger brother is still in middle school. With their father's accident, the family is likely in trouble. Sure enough, not long after, Jiang Chen came upstairs with his head down. He awkwardly pulled me aside. Gu Qiao, can you lend me 100,000 yuan? I wondered if I had misheard something. Gu Qiao, that's also the father you've called dad for decades. You can't just stand by and watch him suffer, can you? Are you out of your mind? That's your dad. What does it have to do with me? Jiang Chen took a deep breath. Then, for the sake of our classmates, lend me some money. I promise to pay you back. Jiang Taohua was already married and had to take care of a child, while Jiang's mother had to stay home to look after the younger son and the elderly. Therefore, the responsibility of taking care of Jiang's father fell on Jiang Chen. He began to frequently doze off at work, and his job performance became a mess. After the summer vacation ended, the company revoked Jiang Chen's internship. Without this easy and well-paying job, Jiang Chen had to start working multiple part-time jobs, and naturally, his grades also dropped significantly. Finally, during their senior year, when everyone was busy finding jobs and internships, Zhou Xiaoxi brought up the topic of breaking up again. Zhou Xiaoxi, get out here. Jiang Chen stood red-eyed at the dormitory downstairs, shouting at the top of his lungs for a long time. Dinah and I stood to the side, utterly helpless. Dinah was so angry her chest was heaving. Is Jiang Chen crazy? They've broken up, yet he's still clinging on like this. How many days has he been coming here to shout? I looked at Jiang Chen with disdain. Reborn into another life, yet he had managed to mess it up so badly. His job was a failure, his studies were a failure, and naturally, his love life would be a failure too. I always thought that being reborn meant having a golden finger, with a promising future ahead, but without effort, how could there be a future? Just like studying, someone who doesn't put in the effort would fail to get into a good university even if they repeated high school 10 times. Life is no different. Being reborn only means understanding the general trends of the times and having a few more opportunities than the average person, but it doesn't mean you can rest on your laurels. Even if you want to make money through real estate speculation, you at least need to earn your first pot of gold. However, Jiang Chen has always been quite laid back. In his previous life, he was dragged along by me, and we often argued about this. He liked fishing, painting, and drinking tea. He believed that money was endless, and life needed poetry and art, while I always wanted to climb higher and farther to see the landscapes I had never seen before. I'm so angry. Meeting Jiang Chen is really my bad luck. Zhou Xiaoxi was so furious that she couldn't even eat her meal. You have no idea how outrageous Jiang Chen is. He kept telling me that as soon as we graduated, we had to get married. He even said that after getting married, we would work together to buy a house here, and then bring his parents to live with us. His sister is even more terrifying. The last time she came over, I treated her to a meal, and the whole time she was talking about how I should give their Jiang family several sons. She said that after getting married, I should take good care of his parents. Do they have a throne to inherit or something? Multiple sons? I spit. If someone's conditions are a bit poor, they can work hard to improve, but family traditions are unchangeable. If I didn't run away quickly, would I wait to become a servant in his family? I shamefully lowered my head. Back then, Jiang Chen's family had said the same thing to me, and although I felt uncomfortable at the time, I didn't take it to heart. After Jiang Chen pestered me a few times, more and more girls started gossiping about him. Seeing that Zhou Xiaoxi still ignored him, he had no choice but to give up. After all, he had to earn his own tuition and living expenses, and with classes and part-time jobs, he was quite busy. I'm glad I didn't get caught up in the whirlpool of love like Jiang Chen, neglecting everything else. Pei Ning kept his word and distributed the dividends to me by the end of our senior year. With that money, I took out mortgages on several properties in prime locations, and my life began to stabilize. Zhou Xiaoxi remains my close friend. She passed the civil service exam, and her family fully paid for her house, allowing her to live a comfortable and stress-free life. Many of our classmates also stayed in the city, and I became the most successful among them. Later, I heard that Jiang Chen was still single and had been going on blind dates. However, without a house or a car, and with his family's poor financial situation, most girls with better prospects were unwilling to consider him. Zhou Xiaoxi got married to a high school classmate of hers, a match in both social status and upbringing, and they grew up together. After attending her wedding and leaving the hotel, I ran into Jiangchen at the entrance. His face looked somewhat haggard, and his once smooth chin was now covered in stubble. "Gu Qiao, are you laughing at me in your heart? I'm just trying to pursue my own love. What's wrong with that?" I chuckled lightly. "Jiangchen, I thought the same thing in my previous life." With that, I drove off in my 911. Without looking back, under the sunlight, Jiangchen stood forlornly at the door, watching me leave, unwilling to move for a long time. Jiangchen's side story: I am with Zhou Xiaoxi now. Finally, I am with the woman I have longed for and loved all my life. I am filled with excitement. I feel that the heavens have given me a second chance to make up for this regret. It's not that Gu Qiao is bad. There probably isn't a more virtuous and magnanimous woman in the world than her. It's just that being with her is incredibly exhausting. Back when I got into university, the village chief even led a group to send me off with drums and gongs. I was always the pride of the entire village, but ever since I got together with Gu Qiao, she always outshone me in everything: better grades, better job, better at everything. We started a company together, and every time I went to the factory to inspect goods or discuss business, everyone would say how lucky I was to have such a great wife, how outstanding, hardworking, and capable Gu Qiao was. How ridiculous, right? I'm clearly quite accomplished too, but they made it sound like I was living off her. I started to grow increasingly annoyed with Gu Qiao. She was always full of energy, arranging everything for the company, for the kids, for me. She would urge me to handle business, push me to meet my sales targets, and even call me out in company meetings for not meeting my department's quarterly goals. With the kids, it was the same. She had to keep track of their grades, make sure they practiced the piano, played basketball, as if they were training for a decathlon. Being her son must be miserable. A woman should be gentle, charming, and pure, just like Zhou Xiaoxi, who knows how to act coquettishly, how to dress up, and how to sweetly call me Gidge. I would gladly give her the best of everything just to see her smile. After being together for half a month, I started to feel something was off. Why hasn't Zhou Xiaoxi paid for anything even once? If I had money, I wouldn't care, but I'm still a student now. And even though I just got a scholarship, that's my living expenses for the whole year. When I was with Gu Qiao, we always split the costs. Gu Qiao always said that now that men and women are equal, women also work and go to university, so it's not right for everything to be paid for by the man. I thought she made a lot of sense. It's the 21st century, so I don't mind paying a bit more, but Zhou Xiaoxi can't expect me to cover everything, right? Plus, she's such a big spender. Today it's hot pot, tomorrow it's Western food, the day after it's Japanese cuisine, ordering a whole table of dishes, only to take a few bites of each and say she's full. In the end, I have to grit my teeth and finish everything, because I just can't stand to see food go to waste. I hinted to Zhou Xiaoxi several times to get her to pay the bill, but she kept playing dumb. There was no choice but to pay myself. Soon, my money was all spent by Zhou Xiaoxi. When I asked her for a loan, she actually threatened to break up with me. I was sure Gu Qiao must have said something. I knew she still loved me, but I had already grown tired of life and didn't want to continue our relationship. It's truly terrifying how strong a woman's jealousy can be. Is it really not okay for a man to borrow money from a woman? I was a bit confused. In my previous life, Gu Qiao repeatedly handed me money during my most difficult times, then patted her chest with a heroic air and said, "Don't feel embarrassed, I'm just lending this to you," although I never had the chance to repay her later. After all, we became a family, and there was no need to repay. I flipped open my phone to look at pictures of Gu Qiao, only to find that my phone was filled with photos of Zhou Xiaoxi and Gu Qiao. I started to miss her a little. Gu Qiao and I ended up interning at the same company, watching her every day full of energy and radiating vitality. A multitude of complex emotions began to grow in my heart, even a sense of hatred. In my previous life, she claimed to love me so much, saying all sorts of sweet nothings, but now without me, it seems she's living quite happily. I started to deliberately target Gu Qiao, saying all kinds of sarcastic and nonsensical things that even I found strange. At first, Gu Qiao got angry, but later she simply ignored me. I started to panic. Hatred is not the opposite of love. Indifference is. Gu Qiao had begun to ignore me. She got along very well with her colleagues, and many of them even started introducing potential partners to her. As an intern, she became the most valued person by the team leader. Even Pei Ning couldn't help but frequently glance at her with admiration. It was the first time I realized that Gu Qiao was also a radiant person. Zhou Xiaoxi was starting to get on my nerves. Did she not have anything else to do? And every time she contacted me, it was mostly to ask me to pay for things. I was becoming More and more fed up with her, we started arguing frequently, and finally, Zhou Xiaoxi broke up with me again. This time, it seemed impossible to fix things. I would stand downstairs at their dormitory every day, shouting Zhou Xiaoxi's name, but honestly, I didn't miss her that much. It was just that I had abandoned Gu Qiao without hesitation to pursue her, and if I couldn't make things work with Zhou Xiaoxi, then my entire life would be the biggest joke, for the sake of being with Zhou Xiaoxi. I gave up my studies, my internship, and even Gu Qiao. I felt lost. With the golden finger of rebirth, why was I living worse than my previous life? The money I invested in the stock market had all been lost. Those future high-performing stocks were actually causing me to lose everything now. Keeping them would definitely make money in the future, but it couldn't solve my current crisis. I started working every day, putting all my time into part-time jobs. Was Gu Qiao this hardworking in her previous life too? How was she able to balance her work and her grades? I find myself thinking about Gu Qiao more and more often. I hear she's been promoted, bought a house, and is now the top favorite by Pei Ning. My parents keep pressuring me to get married, and sometimes my colleagues even start enthusiastically introducing me to blind dates. I don't want to get married, nor do I want to go on blind dates. Those girls are all so arrogant, ordinary, yet they love to judge me. In their eyes, being from a rural background and having 2 brothers are all faults. How ridiculous. They can't even compare to a single toe of Gu Qiao's, so what right do they have to look down on me? I began to pour all my energy into work, and slowly came to understand just how much Gu Qiao had helped me in my previous life. It turns out it wasn't that she relied on me for a lifetime, but that I took advantage of her for a lifetime. I heard that Zhou Xiaoxi is getting married, and I got very excited. If she's getting married, Gu Qiao will definitely come, right? Sure enough, I saw Gu Qiao. She was wearing a high-end tailored suit, looking fresh and capable, clearly embodying the image of a strong woman. She was so dazzling, even brighter than the sun hanging high in the sky. I didn't want to show weakness in front of her, so I casually brought up a topic. Gu Qiao said that in her previous life, she was also wholeheartedly pursuing her own love. I pretended to look at her with a carefree attitude, but my heart felt as if it was being tightly gripped, the pain making it hard for me to breathe. In the end, I still lost my moon after hearing the first story above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see Reborn. On the day my sister and I were choosing husbands, I discovered I could hear people's inner thoughts. I heard my sister think, this time, I must snatch the good husband in advance. Then, she hastily took away the gentle husband I had married in my previous life, and the abusive man who beat her daily in the past life was left for me. I laughed. Did she think the man I married before had good character? I was reborn on the day my sister and I were choosing husbands. Across the dining table sat 2 men of similar age. One was Charles, the eldest son of the Peterson family, with a cold demeanor. One is Leo, the youngest son of the Peterson family, but he's illegitimate, with a gentle temperament. This time, I must secure a good husband in advance. A woman's voice reached my ears. It was my sister's voice. I looked at her, but she didn't speak. His eyes were fixed intently on Leo. I must steal you away later. Her voice came through again. Only then did I realize, not only had I been reborn, but I could also hear others' thoughts, and from these 2 sentences of my sister, it seems she has also been reborn. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said such things. Sure enough, the next second she walked over and sat beside Leo, looking at him shyly. Hello. My name is Heidi. I like you. My father suddenly spoke up beside me. Nina, since your sister has already chosen Leo, you'll marry Charles instead. As soon as these words were spoken, my sister's eyes gleamed with triumph. She thought to herself, in this lifetime, you'll take the beatings for me. In our previous life, my sister had married Charles. Charles was exceptionally skilled in business, constantly preoccupied with work, and rumored to be emotionally distant. My sister went to him repeatedly, but each time she was thrown out of the room, bruised and battered. In the end, because she never got pregnant, Mrs. Peterson concluded that there must be something wrong with her body and kicked her out of the Peterson family. As for me, the Leo the first married, though he didn't have much influence in the Peterson family, was more than enough to keep me well fed and clothed. He stayed with me every day, accompanying me shopping, dining, and dating, spoiling me to the core. The entire Peterson family knew that we had a very close relationship. Later, Charles suddenly died from poisoning, and Leo inherited the family company. My status in the Peterson family skyrocketed instantly. My sister, consumed by jealousy, took the opportunity while I was out shopping to drive into me, ending both our lives. Okay, Dad, I actually quite like Charles too. I responded with a smile and walked over to sit beside Charles. I have to admit, this man's presence is truly overwhelming. Just sitting Next to him, I felt a chilling aura envelop me, making me too intimidated to speak. No wonder my sister was beaten so badly by him in the previous life. I tried to listen to his thoughts, but there wasn't a single word in his heart. However, when Leo smiled and looked at his sister, I heard him say something. "What a beautiful little darling." Hearing this, a shiver ran down my spine. Instinctively, I grabbed Charles's hand. Though he has a cold personality, his hand was surprisingly warm because of my movement. He glanced over. I quickly let go of his hand, and only then did he remain silent. Although this man looks quite intimidating, but I think following him is still better than following that viper Leo. Indiana, this life, I must change my originally tragic fate. I want to make big money, be independent, and rely on no one. My sister and I had a joint wedding in our previous lives. We also held it around this time back then. Charles didn't attend the wedding that day, while Leo showed up early in the morning. Everyone said he was the more considerate husband. Sure enough, it was the same in this life. Leo, dressed in a white suit, hurried over and carried his sister away. As they passed by me, my sister looked at me smugly. "Little sister, why didn't Charles come to pick you up?" I just smiled. "No need for your concern, sister. You should worry about yourself." Her face darkened at my words. "Go ahead and laugh. Let's see if you can still laugh after you get beaten." With that thought, she went downstairs with Leo, but it's still too early to say these things. Who will have the last laugh remains to be seen. Charles didn't attend the wedding, making me and my sister endure a lot of gossip and strange looks at the ceremony. Just like in our past life, my sister was even happier and couldn't wait to say to Leo, "I love you, Leo." Then she kissed him on the lips, and after the kiss, she stared at me with her mouth still wet. I knew she wanted to see me embarrassed, but I'm not foolish enough to storm off in anger like she did in her previous life. That would only give everyone present and the Peterson family ammunition against me. I remember how they all said my sister was too impulsive and unworthy of being the eldest daughter-in-law of the Peterson family. As a result, after marriage, the Peterson matriarch never treated her kindly, making her suffer greatly within the family. I held the microphone and smiled confidently at the audience below. Charles has an important business deal to discuss today, so I'll be standing in for him during the toast later. I hope you all don't mind." As soon as these words were spoken, the murmurs from the audience ceased. Old Mrs. Peterson, seated at the head of the table, looked at me with newfound respect. The Peterson family is wealthy and influential, and they care deeply about Faye's and others' opinions, so at a time like this, as the daughter-in-law, she must not panic and must carry herself with the demeanor of the lady of the house. Her sister also noticed the look in old Mrs. Peterson's eyes, and a flash of anger crossed her own. "How disgusting. I'll make sure you embarrass yourself when it's time to serve tea." Actually, I think being able to hear inner thoughts is truly a good thing. With an extra golden finger, everything becomes much more convenient. When it came to the tea-serving ceremony, I calmly lifted my skirt and walked toward Mrs. Peterson. My sister kept a close eye on me, silently counting in her heart. 1, 2, 3. The next second, I swiftly dodged to the side to grab the tea. Meanwhile, my sister fell hard to the ground, the tea soaking her completely. "Are you okay?" Leo hurried over to help her up. In his heart, he scolded, "What a fool." Everyone was looking in this direction. Old Mrs. Peterson's face was full of anger, rash and reckless. "Do you still have any semblance of the Peterson family's second daughter-in-law?" I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to." My sister hurriedly apologized, but unwillingness flickered in her eyes. If I were her, I wouldn't cause trouble again in this life. I just live peacefully, but since she doesn't want me to have an easy time, I won't just swallow my anger either, because my sister made a scene. The wedding ended hastily. Old Mrs. Peterson never gave her a single kind look from start to finish, but when she looked at me, her eyes were full of relief. She even took my hand and said, "Nina, I'll make sure Charles comes back to accompany you tonight to make it up to you." Sure enough, Charles really came back that evening. He opened the door, loosening his tie, his face full of exhaustion. I hurried over to take his coat. "Charles, you must be tired today." He just glanced at me and didn't bother to respond. In my past life, I heard from the servants that Charles didn't return on the wedding night. My sister was left alone in the bridal chamber, becoming a laughingstock for everyone. When she went to complain to Mrs. Peterson, she was instead scolded for being incompetent and failing to win a man's heart. While Charles was taking a shower, I made his bed and brewed some tea for him. Then, I tidied up the sofa myself, preparing to sleep there alone. When Charles came out and saw this scene, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. I quickly said, "You take the bed, I'll sleep on the sofa." "Nina, are you playing hard to get?" He narrowed his eyes slightly as he stared at me, wearing a bathrobe. His chest was slightly exposed, with a few water droplets still clinging to it. I have to admit, his physique is indeed Impressive, I quickly averted my gaze. No, we didn't have any feelings for each other before. Sleeping together would be awkward for both of us. If possible, I'd like to collaborate with you. What do you mean? After all, this is just a marriage of convenience. Many couples like us live separate lives privately while putting on a show in public. I married you only to live a comfortable life without worries. I don't expect any emotional attachment. Hearing my words, he suddenly smirked. You're very clever, I happen to think the same way, and I can agree to that. I'm just an ordinary person, without the capability or confidence to control a man's heart. After all, in the Peterson family, his attitude toward me depends on how Mrs. Peterson treats me. I certainly don't want to end up like my sister in her past life, where everyone turned against her. That wouldn't do me any good. Besides, in my past life, he even abused my sister. I don't want to provoke him either and end up getting beaten, so I choose to just coexist peacefully with him in this life. I just want to take the money and start my own company, then rely on myself to achieve great success. I had Charles post a photo of us holding hands tightly on his social media, with the caption, "Happy Newlyweds." The reason was to make everyone think there were no issues between us. Other than that, I noticed his social media was very clean. Aside from this one post, he hadn't shared anything else. Someone like him must lead a very dull life every day. When it was time to sleep, he actually took the big bed for himself and left me to sleep on the couch. He really has no idea how to treat a lady. Oh well, I should count my blessings. Early the next morning, I was woken up by Charles. He was listening to music while doing push-ups to exercise first thing in the morning. They say men with low libido are all scrawny, but his 8-pack abs and muscular calves clearly showed he was full of strength, much better physique than Leo's. "Stop looking, I'm not interested in you," he suddenly spoke up, getting up from the floor. "Get dressed and come have breakfast with me." My subconscious was telling me that this way everyone would think we had a good relationship. Actually, I thought he was quite easy to talk to, so why did he hit my sister in the previous life? After getting ready, I went out with Charles. As soon as we stepped out, I saw my sister and Leo walking hand in hand toward us. My sister was wearing a strapless dress, with hickeys all over her collarbone and shoulders, deliberately leaning in to show them off. Her face was full of pride as she looked me up and down from head to toe, wrapped up so tightly. "You must have been beaten, trying to hide the bruises," she thought to herself, then smiled smugly. "How was your wedding night, little sister?" "Today I'm wearing a proper long-sleeved gown." Sister seems to have forgotten that old Mrs. Peterson hates vulgar outfits appearing in the Peterson family, and makeup shouldn't be heavy either, but I don't want to remind her. I just smiled. "Sister, in the Peterson family, according to seniority, you should call me sister-in-law, not little sister." Her face immediately darkened, and she gritted her teeth in defiance. Charles never said anything about such formalities. "Who are you to demand it?" Then she looked at Charles. "Charles, step forward and say something." I could feel the aura around Charles beside me gradually turning cold. Leo cursed in his heart, "Damn idiot, just wait till I deal with you tonight." Then she tugged at her sister's hand, signaling her to stop talking, but she was still completely unaware of the severity of the situation. "Leo, what is the first rule of the Peterson family?" Charles spoke softly. Leo quickly lowered his head. "Sorry, bro, I'll teach her a lesson right away." The next second, with a loud smack, he slapped his sister across the face. "Hurry up and greet brother and sister-in-law properly." My sister's face turned red from the beating, and she was so angry she was about to explode, but she knew Charles wasn't someone to be trifled with, so she could only mutter unwillingly, "Good morning, brother and sister-in-law." After saying that, she was dragged away by Leo, because I remembered, the first rule of the Peterson family was, no one may disrespect the heir and the heir's wife, nor address them by their first names directly. Violators would receive 30 lashes. Charles is the heir of the Peterson family. I remember in my past life, in order to survive, I memorized all the family rules back then. After my sister married Charles, she bullied me everywhere, all because I remembered this family rule. I didn't dare to disrespect her. I thought my sister knew the family rules, but it turned out she hadn't memorized them at all, so she thought she could still bully me in this life. By the time we reached the dining room, my sister had already received her punishment. Her face was pale, and she kept her head down, not daring to act up for the moment. I precisely noticed that under the table, Leo kept pricking her hand with a needle. "Bitch, it's all because of you that I'm suffering," he cursed inwardly, his grip tightening gradually. In my previous life, not long after we got married, he started abusing me and forbade me from speaking out. I wanted to escape but couldn't, enduring immense suffering as a result. So I'd rather follow Charles than go with him. "Sister, you chose this husband yourself in this life, don't blame me." Old Mrs. Peterson arrived, and we all stood up to greet her, leaning on her cane. Just as she was about to have us all sit down, her eyes fixed on my sister. My sister didn't change her clothes and was still wearing that strapless dress. Noticing the old lady's gaze, she immediately forced a smile, pretending to be very embarrassed. "Mom, it was all Leo's doing. He said he wanted me to have a baby." As soon as these words were spoken, the old lady flew into a rage and immediately struck her back with a cane. "Shameless, what you and your husband do in private is your own business, but it's unacceptable to talk about it in public, let alone dress so provocatively. It's disgraceful. In my previous life, a servant was fired by Mrs. Peterson just for wearing a pair of shorts, so ever since then, I've been very careful. It was only by living cautiously that I barely managed to survive in the Peterson family. That's why my sister believed that my good life was all because I had a good man by my side, but her thinking is flawed. Why must a good life depend on others? Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't know." Sister was in so much pain from being hit that sweat broke out on her forehead. Leo also hurriedly stepped in to explain. "Mom, it's all my fault. I forgot to remind her." Though he said this outwardly, inwardly he was extremely pleased with himself. "Serves you right. Seeing you get beaten up makes me happy. TSK, what a pervert. After all, she was just a new daughter-in-law." So Mrs. Peterson didn't press further. She took her seat and invited everyone to start eating. Charles didn't say a word the whole time, and even served me food during the meal. I could feel my sister's furious gaze, as if she wanted to tear me to pieces. I laughed even more gleefully. "Thank you, darling." Old Mrs. Peterson smiled at me with satisfaction. "Nina, after dinner, you should go to the company with Charles to learn the ropes. As the eldest daughter-in-law of the Peterson family, you still need to pick up some business knowledge." I knew Mrs. Peterson would say that, because in my previous life, I had also said the same thing to my sister at the dinner table, but my sister said, "I don't want to learn, I can just rely on Charles for the rest of my life." She pushed away such a great opportunity herself, so much so that when she was driven out of the house, she was penniless. "Okay, Mom," I responded to the old lady. Charles took me to the company in the car. I kept trying to hear his thoughts, but there was nothing. Indeed, a man like him wouldn't be tied down by anything, nor would he be troubled. At the company, Charles took me to his office. "Wait for me here." With just one sentence, he walked out through the glass door. I saw him hurrying to the conference room. Curious, I followed him. I saw him inside the conference room communicating with a British man, discussing the sale of the product formula he developed to Charles. Good thing I had already done my research before coming. The Peterson family is wealthy, and this product formula is only worth a few hundred RMB. This time, I'm definitely going to make the Peterson family pay dearly. I heard the thoughts of the British looking over in surprise. His expression remained as steady as an old dog's, giving no hint of the sinister scheme brewing in his mind. He quoted a high price of 3 million. Charles hesitated and did not respond to him. He seized the moment and added, "Mr. Charles, this product will definitely bring you value exceeding 3 million. Just as Charles was about to agree, I pushed the door open and entered. I greeted the British man with a hello in English, then I picked up the bottle of skincare serum he had developed and examined it. "I'm a woman, so I understand skincare better. Your product only contains whitening ingredients. It can't fight wrinkles or prevent early aging. Besides, as an engineer, you know better than I do that whitening is mostly a gimmick with minimal actual effects, so I want to ask, what makes your formula worth 3 million? The British man froze on the spot. Charles watched me with great interest, not interrupting. I knew then he was allowing me to speak to him like this, so I boldly continued, "But since this is a foreign product, and you've promoted it on social media, the public is already very familiar with and trusts your product, so I can offer you this amount." I held up one finger to him. 1 million, the man exclaimed in surprise. "Jack, 1 million is already quite generous. Think about it." Charles stared at him intently and said, No. I cut him off. "I'll give you 10,000 for something worth only a few hundred. 10,000 is already my bottom line." Hearing this, the British man stood up in shock, speaking in broken Chinese. "Miss, who are you? How can you make such an offer? How am I supposed to do business like this? At worst, I won't cooperate. It's not like you absolutely must sell to me." With that, he turned to leave. "Jack, I'll give you 1 million, sign the contract immediately, and then I need you to apologize to my wife." Hearing this, Jack immediately turned back, his eyes lighting up with delight. I didn't understand Charles's actions and hurriedly tried to stop him, but he shook his head at me, signaling me not to speak, so I had to stop. "President Charles, you really know how to do business." Jack laughed and then apologized to me. "Sorry, I didn't know you were President Charles's wife." Then Charles took him to sign the contract. After signing, I asked him in confusion, "That thing is only worth a few $100s, why did you pay $1 million?" Charles poured a cup of coffee and said unhurriedly, "You have a good business mind, but you don't understand the market yet. Jack's formula itself is worthless. I knew that from the start. What I value is the brand he created, although its recognition isn't very high now. The good thing is that all young women are already aware of it. With just a little more promotion, I can easily earn back the $1 million. Suddenly, everything became clear to me, so that's how it was. No wonder Jack was so confident. Coming here was indeed the right decision. I've learned something, but I'm curious, how did you know it was only worth a few hundred? Charles stared at me intently. I smiled awkwardly and said, "Just a guess." He didn't press further, and I seized the opportunity to ask him to let me manage the subsidiary company in my previous life, because Leo had no status in the Peterson family. He couldn't give me anything. I really want to start my own business and be my own boss. That way, I won't have to rely on anyone else. I can just depend on myself. And once I've earned enough money, I can leave. You've got quite the ambition. You're not thinking of taking over the company, making money, and then running away, are you? He looked at me as if he could see right through me. Damn. How is he even better at reading people than I am? For the first time, I felt inferior. Even with my cheat-like abilities, I still can't match him. Guess that's just natural talent. Of course not, I just wanted to find something to do. He took a sip of coffee. All right, but you'll have to learn from me first before you can go. For the next few days, I followed Charles to the company to learn. I gained a lot of insight into human relationships and business skills. That day, he actually took me out to dinner. It was the most luxurious Western restaurant in town. Unexpectedly, we ran into my sister and Leo there. My sister had been cutting his steak for him, but when she saw me with Charles, she quickly put down the knife and fork, staring at me in surprise. "Sis, you're here too." Realizing her mistake, she quickly corrected herself. "Bro, sis-in-law, you're here for dinner too." The next second, another voice echoed in her mind. Damn it, of all times to run into her, can't afford to lose face now. Yes, I came to have dinner with Charles. I took the initiative to link arms with Charles, and he didn't refuse. Leo also hurried over to greet us. "Brother, sister-in-law." Charles ignored them and directly pulled me to take a seat. I saw my sister behind us, grinding her teeth in anger. She must be very confused. Why didn't Charles hit me, and even took the initiative to bring me out for a meal? When I went to the restroom, she was waiting for me at the door. She looked at me as if she wanted to devour me whole. That gaze was identical to the one she had when she ran me over with her car in my past life. "You must have been beaten terribly by Charles in private. Stop pretending, you make me sick." Hearing her words, I let out a light chuckle, pretending to accidentally notice the needle marks on her arm. "Oh, sister, what happened? Why are there so many needle marks?" A flash of panic crossed her eyes as she hurriedly covered her arm, glaring at me fiercely. "None of your business. This is just a little game between Leo and me, though it's no surprise you wouldn't know, since Charles probably hasn't even touched you yet, unlike Leo, who wants me all night long. I'm exhausted." Clearly she's not doing well, yet still putting on a tough front. I really wonder how long she can keep up this stubborn act. "That's great, wishing you both more and more happiness." I said this and wanted to leave, but she grabbed my hair. "You bitch, are you mocking me?" I frowned. Still the same lunatic as in my past life. I struggled, telling her to let me go. At that moment, Charles suddenly entered and kicked her away. "Do you know the punishment for disrespecting your sister-in-law?" Charles pulled me aside, looking down at her with superiority. I remember, that was meant to be locked in the dungeon. I had been sent there once before by my sister's schemes, where there were countless rats, cockroaches, and snakes, so she knew exactly what her punishment would be. My sister turned pale with fright. "Brother, I didn't mean to. Don't treat me like this." But Charles would never soften his heart. Once he made a decision, nothing and no one could change it. He had Leo take my sister away. Leo cursed inwardly. "Best if she dies in there, always causing trouble every single day." Charles brought me back to the bedroom and checked my head. "Are you okay?" "It's nothing, she just pulled my hair a bit." I pushed him away and straightened my clothes and hair myself. "But why did you suddenly come to the restroom?" I looked into Charles's pitch-black eyes. "I noticed you hadn't come back. I wanted to ask you, why did you have another conflict with her?" I thought about it, but I couldn't exactly tell him it was because my sister had been reborn and was deliberately targeting me, so I told him. "My sister said she and Leo have been enjoying their intimate moments every day, unlike you who never touch me, so that's why we had a conflict." Hearing this, Charles's eyes flickered. "So you're implying that I suddenly realized my words had been Misunderstood and quickly waved my hands. No, that's not what I meant. I was just explaining why there was a conflict. Nina, have you ever thought about doing that kind of thing with me? He stared at me intently. Of course not, I answered him immediately. I said I just wanted to rely on you to live a carefree life. Is that all? I nodded heavily, and he didn't say anything more, just suddenly slammed the door and left. I don't know which of my words upset him. I don't want to know. Either. I just want to achieve what I desire. The next day, Charles didn't take me to the company. He told me to go to the branch office on my own, so I began focusing on managing the branch office. I planned to quit after earning $10 million every day. I worked on projects, negotiated deals, and brought in substantial profits for the company. Mrs. Peterson told me to take my own compensation from the earnings. While I was happily making money, my sister emerged from the dungeon that day. I happened to be coming home from work. I noticed she had lost a lot of weight, but she still took care to put on makeup and wore beautiful clothes. She walked toward me step by step, holding Leo's arm. Sister-in-law, I've already asked Mom for permission to learn the company's operations from you and help share some of your workload. Leo thought to himself, soon, I'll make sure both you and Charles die together. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, Charles had passed away unexpectedly, so it was him who caused it, and in this life, he not only wants to harm Charles again but also me. I tried hard to control my fluctuating emotions as I looked at my sister before me. Fine, come tomorrow then. I said it deliberately because I wanted to know what sinister scheme she had in mind. The next second, she thought to herself, what a fool, just wait, soon I'll get rid of all of you and live freely on my own. Turns out, after spending a few days in the dungeon, she had sobered up, but she didn't know I could hear others' thoughts. How could she possibly kill me, in my previous life? Charles died from poisoning. I suddenly remembered seeing a cabinet full of colorful potions in the basement of Leo's room back then. He often used those potions to conduct experiments on me. Sometimes I would faint, and other times I would become abnormally excited. Now that I think about it, that must have been the potion used to make poison. I took my sister to the company and had her start as an intern. Now she has learned to control her emotions. Whatever I say or ask her to do, she agrees. Without hesitation, I know the reason she became like this is because she's plotting a murder plan. Leo wants me and Charles dead, and she wants me, Charles, and Leo dead, but just based on her intention to kill Leo, I can use that to my advantage. Soon, I took action. I went to see Leo behind Charles's back. I knew Leo well. He liked obedient women, which was why I had managed to stay by his side for so long before. I deliberately dressed provocatively and said to him, Leo, I like you. He suddenly became interested. Sister-in-law, aren't you afraid my brother will kill you? I've always wanted to be with you. I bit my lip, pretending to be shy, and I also want to tell you something. My sister is planning to poison you. Yesterday at the company, I overheard her saying it to a man. At these words, Leo's face instantly flushed with anger. Is this true? Of course it's true. She said you've been beating her all along. So she wants to kill you. She said she wants to rise to fame and fortune. Fortunately, I have memories from before, so I can completely control them. When Leo heard me say this, he completely believed me, because no one else knew about his perverted behavior except him and my sister. He said, just wait till I teach that woman a lesson. Sister-in-law, wait for me. Once I've dealt with Charles and her, you'll be my wife, and I'll take care of you. With that, he left. Does he really think I'm stupid? I would never go with him. I immediately went to find Charles again, although his life or death didn't have much to do with me, in this lifetime after all. It was he who helped me earn money, and even took the trouble to share workplace experience with me. In the office, he seemed somewhat surprised by what I said. What evidence do you have that Leo wants to harm me? I took out the voice recorder and played the conversation I just had with Leo. The first part was me deliberately trying to seduce him, and even I cringed listening to it. I quickly explained, I was just pretending to gain his trust. Charles didn't respond to me, but his face darkened a bit. I shut my mouth resentfully. The next second, he pulled me into his arms. A scent of pine wood enveloped me, and I could hear his heart pounding thump thump. I was completely at a loss. He stared at me intently. Nina, I advise you not to entertain any thoughts of betrayal, as long as you are my wife. You should remain loyal to me. This silly child. How did the focus shift to this? Don't worry about that for now. The key point is your brother is trying to harm you. What are your thoughts? Then let's see if he's capable. If he can't kill me, he'll be the one who dies. Charles didn't seem to take the matter seriously. That evening, he even took me to a banquet. He said it would benefit the branch company's development and help us meet many clients. I followed him inside, feeling numerous gazes scrutinizing me. All of them were filled with ill intentions. Men are all scum. I Shouldn't have brought her here. Charles's inner thoughts suddenly surfaced. I stared at his profile in surprise. His face was expressionless, yet he could actually say such things in his heart. And what does that even mean? He noticed my gaze and looked down at me. What's wrong? After speaking, he thought to himself again. So silly. I was fucking shocked. How could the cold and domineering CEO I remember say something like that? I tried hard to control my emotional fluctuations and shook my head, saying it was nothing. After the dinner party, Charles took me home. Leo and my sister are waiting for us in the living room. My sister took the initiative to invite us to dinner. Leo stared intently at my chest, then also smiled and said, "Bro, sis-in-law, Heidi and I bought some delicious groceries today. Let's eat together." Damn, their intentions are so obvious. I really want to know how Charles was poisoned by such clumsy means in my previous life. Looking at the table full of delicious dishes, I didn't dare take a single bite. Under the table, I grabbed Charles's hand to signal him not to eat either, but the next second, he picked up the food and ate it, so fast I didn't even have time to react, and he even said, "It's quite delicious, let's all eat together." As soon as these words were spoken, a glimmer of joy flashed in my sister's and Leo's eyes. I was so anxious that I kept pinching Charles's hand, but he remained completely still. I had clearly warned him it would harm him. So why did he still eat? The moment this thought emerged, Charles collapsed onto the table alongside his sister. Old Mrs. Peterson also stepped out, her voice trembling with rage. "Guards, take these two beasts to the dungeon, never to see daylight again." "Nina, I'm not as foolish as you think." Charles turned to look at me. "I told my mom long ago to install surveillance cameras all over the house. When we discovered Leo poisoning the wine, we replaced their poisoned wine and switched both their drinks with a sedative." At this moment, his voice suddenly grew quieter. "But you seem really afraid of me dying. Could it be that you've fallen for me?" For some reason, my heart raced when he said that. I didn't. I was just afraid that if you died, there would be no one left for me to rely on. He smiled brightly. "Is that so?" After my sister and Leo were locked in the dungeon, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. The two people I feared most have been dealt with. Now that I've earned enough money, the next step is to file for divorce from Charles. I've been looking for an opportunity, but Charles has been extremely busy lately and rarely comes home. I can only wait for the right moment. That day, I heard from the servants that Leo and my sister had been insisting on seeing me. I went to see my sister first. Her hair was disheveled, and she looked haggard, with unwillingness in her eyes. "How did you know I was trying to kill you? Why do you know?" The next second, she suddenly realized. "I get it. You've come back too, haven't you?" I smiled at her. "Sister, only now did you figure it out." Hearing this, she was so angry that she rushed to me, grabbing the prison bars with a look that seemed like she wanted to kill me. "You bitch, you've been acting so deep. You've always known Leo is a pervert, haven't you? So you just watched me jump into the abyss." "Nina, how could you be so vicious?" "The vicious one isn't me, it's you." I stared intently at her. This face that somewhat resembled mine. She is my own sister, yet in my past life, she killed me with her own hands. In this life, if I couldn't hear thoughts, I probably would have died too. Leo was your choice. Charles was also your own choice. No matter who you picked, you were never satisfied, so you blamed me instead of ever reflecting on your own flaws. You want to rely on men, while I only want to rely on myself. That's the difference. But why is it that you can be fine with anyone else? My sister roared. "You see me doing well, but behind the scenes, I've been working hard to save myself, so this is what I deserve, and you've given nothing, always expecting others to save you, so you deserve to end up like this." I threw down these words and left. My sister roared with unwillingness behind me. "Just you wait, next time I won't lose to you." Arriving at Leo's cell, he was intently folding his blanket. He still had the same obsessive-compulsive tendencies as before. Seeing me, he laughed. "Nina, you're very clever, so good at disguising yourself. You know, I actually believed you were really going to follow me. I was even prepared to kill Heidi and Charles, but you gave me such a big surprise. This is what you deserve. Who told you to be so vicious?" I glared at him fiercely, his face gradually merging with the one that had tormented me in my past life. The fire of rage in my heart burned even more fiercely. He walked toward me step by step, scrutinizing me from head to toe. "If I hadn't been locked up, I'd pin you down and inject you with a potion that would send you to Cloud 9. Haha, I couldn't listen anymore. "Leo, you're definitely going to hell." After saying that, I ran away. Even after leaving the dungeon, I was still panting, unable to forget Leo's perverted expression just now, but fortunately, in this life, I've finally broken free from him. At night, Charles returned. He was drunk. The moment he entered the room, he lunged at me, and we both fell to the ground together. "You're drunk, I'll make you some sobering Soup. I tried to push him away, but he didn't budge an inch. His hands kept unbuttoning his own clothes, those possessive eyes fixed tightly on me. It suddenly dawned on me. He was fully conscious. Charles, think carefully about what you're doing. We're just business partners. You're not allowed to touch me. He covered my mouth with his hand and whispered in my ear, no matter what, you're my wife, and I will touch you. I pushed him away. No. I'm divorcing you. You can't touch me. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire room fell silent. Charles's face darkened. I knew you were going to leave me. As he said this, he let go of me, looking somewhat defeated. Nina, you're such a bad woman. Have you already forgotten about me? What do you mean? I looked at him in confusion. Do you remember Cece? His words pulled my memories back to childhood, when I was still in elementary school. Back then, there was a long-haired boy at school who wore a mask all day. Everyone always mocked him, calling him a sissy, but I stood up to protect him and took him to the hills behind the school. You can't be this weak. You need to learn to stand up for yourself. He slowly looked up at me and removed his mask. Thank you. I just wanted to grow out my hair to donate to my aunt. She has cancer. Only then did I see his face. I never expected him to be so handsome. I fell in love with him at first sight and followed him every day from then on, protecting him. He told me his name was CC later. His aunt passed away, and he moved away. All these years, I've been searching for you. It wasn't until the day I could hear your thoughts that I realized you were the one I'd been looking for, because yours are the only thoughts I can hear. I never revealed myself to you because I wanted you to come to me first. I wanted to know if you still remembered me. I waited until one day, I heard your innermost thoughts. You said once you saved up 10 million, you would leave me. These past few days, I've been avoiding you because I didn't want to let you go. His eyes reddened as he spoke. I never expected such an incredible coincidence. Could he also hear others' thoughts? And I realized you could hear my thoughts too, so I deliberately thought those things to confirm it. I looked at him with guilt. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use you. I was just afraid of being abandoned again. So I thought I'd save up enough money and then leave you. Then do you still want to leave me now? I shook my head. Before, I wanted to leave him because I thought he didn't love me, and staying with him wouldn't bring happiness. It was better to rely on myself, but now, I've learned that he is Cece, and he has been waiting for me all along, so I won't leave. I suddenly understood why he resisted my sister so much in my previous life. He knew it wasn't me. That's why he wouldn't touch her. Thinking of this, I felt his warm lips kiss my face. He whispered softly, Nina, stay with me for a lifetime. My eyes welled up with tears. Okay, we'll be together forever. Thankfully, heaven gave me a chance to be reborn, so I didn't miss out on love. After hearing the second story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. In my past life, my sister adopted a boy, while I adopted a girl. She wanted to firmly control the family's assets and even mocked me, saying, "What's the use of a little girl?" But later, the boy my sister adopted got into a fight at school that resulted in a death, exhausting all their savings. Meanwhile, the girl I adopted was discovered by a director and became a child star, earning a fortune every day. My sister couldn't accept it and urged her adopted son to kill me. When I opened my eyes again, we were back at the orphanage. This time, my sister was the first to pick up the little girl, saying, "Sweetheart, from now on, I'll be your mommy." I looked at the silent boy, smiled, and took his hand. My sister has lived 2 lifetimes, yet still doesn't understand that human effort can achieve anything. Both my sister and I were reborn and returned to the day we went to the orphanage to adopt a child. Just like in our previous life, the director brought Jim and Alice over. Jim had injuries on his body, his face expressionless, his eyes filled with weariness. Alice was nervously twisting the corner of her clothes, looking timid and pitiful. Both children were only 6 years old, yet they lacked the usual innocence and liveliness of young kids. This time, before I could speak, the older sister scooped the girl up in her arms and said, "Sweetie, from now on, I'll be your mommy." Alice was startled and instinctively tried to break free, but she seemed to quickly realize what was happening and nodded, overwhelmed by the unexpected affection. The elder sister smiled with satisfaction, then cast a disdainful glance at Jim, perhaps recalling her past life. She couldn't help but frown. This child, so young yet full of hostility. Nature is determined by heaven. If he's like this now, surely in the future. Jim keenly sensed the malice. Though indignant, he couldn't lash out, only biting his lower lip in silence. "You'll surely make decisive moves and achieve great things in the future." I interrupted my sister's words and gently took Jim's hand. The teacher smiled kindly, though their gazes held confusion when they looked at my sister. As we left the office, I faintly heard the conversation behind us. Didn't Kathy specify she wanted an independent and smart boy, so why did they end up adopting that little Alice girl instead? Tisk, why bother? At least the two most troublesome kids are taken care of now. We're off the hook. Speaking of which, her sister Luna seems so timid, she'll probably get a headache dealing with Jim's antics. Watching my sister carry Alice onto the car, cooing good girl with every step, I couldn't help but sneer. Did she really think Alice was dubbed the nation's darling daughter in our past life purely by luck? My name is Luna, and my sister Kathy is 2 years older than me. Our parents only had us 2 daughters, and both of us are committed to staying single, unable to persuade us to marry, and to ensure the vast Taylor family wouldn't be left without heirs. Dad had each of us adopt a child. His intention was clear: the more promising the child, the greater the future influence and the larger the share of equity they'd receive. Even more obvious than Dad's intentions was Kathy's ambition. She specifically instructed the orphanage director to find her a smart, independent boy, aiming to groom a decisive future tycoon. The reason the director singled out Jim was simply because he was constantly getting into fights at the orphanage, to the point where even the older kids didn't dare provoke him. As for Alice, she was the prettiest but also the most timid child in the orphanage, often bullied. And at such a young age, she already showed signs of depression and withdrawal. The director was worried that if things continued this way, these 2 children would cause trouble and damage the orphanage's reputation, which is why they were pushed out. In her past life, Kathy had taken Jim without hesitation, even mocking me, saying, "What use is a little girl, no matter how pretty she is, if she can't even speak up? What can you expect her to do?" She thought she had the upper hand, but she never expected that under her permissive parenting, Jim would grow increasingly violent, eventually bullying a classmate to the point of death. At that time, Jim was not yet 14 years old, so he escaped severe legal punishment. But Kathy, in order to compensate the victim's family, pulled strings and exhausted almost all her savings. After such an incident, Dad was extremely disappointed. Not only did he refuse to help financially, but he also outright denied Kathy's inheritance rights. Meanwhile, under my guidance, Alice became confident and poised. She was even noticed by a director and cast in a hit drama, stepping into the entertainment industry and becoming the nation's sweetheart, attracting widespread attention. Dad is preparing to hand over the company to me, but my resentful sister directly incited Jim to kill me. After all, Jim is a minor and won't go to jail. What's the difference between killing 1 or 2? Little sister, if you want to compete with me, try again in your next life. Oh, by the way, thank you for leaving me such a money-making daughter. I didn't hear the rest of the words clearly. Stabbed multiple times, I died right before Kathy's eyes. Now that I've been reborn, she still wears the same smug expression as in my past life. Little sister, who would have thought there really is an afterlife? The wheel of fortune turns. This time, it's my turn to live the good life. Take care of the little murderer yourself. Now you can taste my suffering too. He's no easy one to handle. Indeed, on Jim's very first day at school, trouble arose. After school, I saw with my own eyes as he pinned a classmate to the ground and beat them mercilessly. By the time the adults pulled him away, the boy who had been beaten was already bruised and battered, looking utterly disheveled. Jim's hands and face were also marked with injuries. Facing the accusations from those around him, he stubbornly stood to the side, silent, not to mention offering any apology. When the other child's parents arrived, they refused to let it go, if not for the police holding them back. Jim would likely have been seized and beaten by the boy's father. I quickly shielded Jim behind me, bowing repeatedly, forcing a smile, and saying nice words to apologize. An apology is enough. How about I beat you up first and then apologize to you, like father, like son? What kind of bastard dares to lay a hand on my child? Where's the principal? Why wait to expel such a student? The other party's anger hadn't subsided yet, shouting at the top of their voice, drawing in increasingly large crowd. Kathy also came to pick up Alice and, seeing the scene, seemed to have been waiting for it, smugly mocking the situation. Ouch, that's quite the heavy hand. Doesn't seem like a child at all. It's only the first day of school this time. You'll have a long way to go. With that, she stopped looking at me, took Alice by the hand, and turned to leave. Come on, Mommy will take you shopping for pretty clothes. Homework. What homework? You're going to be a star someday. Stop looking. Why are you staring at that little brat? I didn't have time to deal with Kathy, so I took out my business card and handed it to the other parent, politely promising to cover all medical expenses and provide financial compensation. Seeing my cooperative attitude, the police also helped mediate the situation. Perhaps the Taylor family name still carried some weight. After reading the business card, the other party's expression didn't soften, but at least their hostility was somewhat restrained. They reluctantly accepted the transfer before storming off. Before leaving, they glared at me while muttering a string of insults under their breath. I pretended not to hear, tipped Jim's hand, and got into the car, wanting to avoid further trouble. He remained silent with his head down, and I didn't press him further. It wasn't until Jim noticed the car seemed to be heading toward the orphanage that he appeared to grow tense. He stole glances at me, hesitating to speak. I parked the car at the hospital entrance and took him inside to get his wound treated. We've been delayed too long today. The food Auntie made must have gone cold by now. What would you like to eat? I'll take you. I glanced at the small bandage on his head and added with a smile, you got hurt today. You need something nourishing. Jim was taken aback. I messed up. Aren't you going to hit me? He paused, then instinctively glanced at the intersection, lowering his voice even further. I thought, you are going to send me back to the orphanage. Who sends their own son to an orphanage? Don't be silly. What happened today? I believe you had your reasons. Say it if you want to, or don't if you don't. It's already been resolved anyway. Jim gave me a surprised look, his eyes lighting up slightly. He bullied my deskmate and called me a busybody, so I hit him. I know I was wrong. I promise I smiled and chimed in. You must protect yourself first in the future, my little justice warrior. My brave little man. Jim laughed, sheepishly touching his wound. Okay, I couldn't help but recall how in our past life, Kathy didn't even ask Jim why he had fought. Instead, she threw money in the other parent's face and even invoked the Taylor family name to threaten them after they got home. She even praised Jim. What a good son, establishing your authority on the very first day of school. That's the way. If anyone dares to mess with you, just throw a punch. If they get hurt, the Taylor family has your back. You're the future heir of the Taylor family. That little girl Luna is raising, don't even think about it. Your grandfather always admired a decisive and ruthless nature. Young Jim didn't understand what it meant to be decisive in battle. All he knew was that he had hit someone, yet received praise and encouragement. Perhaps it was from that moment that the seed of evil was planted in his heart. In this lifetime, I will never allow that seed to blossom into wickedness. Jim is indeed clever and studies very hard. In fact, Alice was the same in her previous life, but this time, after being adopted by Kathy, Alice hardly had any time to study. Kathy said that studying is useless, and Alice is destined to be a female star. Rather than wasting time on studying, it's better to focus on packaging herself to pave the way for the future. So she enrolled Alice in a bunch of extracurricular classes: piano, dance, vocal training, modeling, every day. Kathy would pick Alice up early from school to attend various lessons. As for her clothing style, it was so mature it hardly seemed fitting for an elementary school student. The school teachers tried to address this with Kathy several times, but she arrogantly ignored their concerns. Later, there was another time when I happened to witness it. My daughter is going to enter the entertainment industry in the future. Could you please stop wasting her time? We won't do the homework, and test scores don't matter. Teacher song. Have you said enough? Our piano lessons cost hundreds per session. If you waste our time, will you refund the money? Kathy was stubborn and unreasonable, so Alice's homeroom teacher eventually stopped intervening. As a result, Kathy became even more excessive, frequently making Alice skip school to participate in various fashion shows, creating video accounts to start building fame. Later on, Alice gradually began receiving children's clothing advertisements and started earning money. This delighted Kathy beyond measure, but I was deeply worried. After all, she was a child I had cared for with all my heart for 8 years in my past life. Even if she isn't my daughter in this lifetime, the feelings in my heart won't fade. Alice is still young, her worldview not yet fully formed. If she continues to be raised by Kathy like this, it's hard to say what kind of person she might become. But Kathy and I don't live together, and I don't get to see Alice much on a daily basis. During a family dinner, Kathy kept bragging to our dad about how many followers Alice had and how much money she could make from a single ad. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I took the opportunity to gently suggest, she's still young, there's no rush to make money, it's better to focus on studying first and wait until later. Kathy didn't let me finish before cutting me off with a cold laugh. You're just sour grapes. You're jealous because my daughter is successful, aren't you? Is it because your son keeps getting into fights and can't stand to see my daughter doing well? Instead of wasting your time worrying about our Alice, you should keep a closer eye on your son before he ends up killing someone. Ever since Alice came along, Kathy has been too busy grooming her starlet to pay any attention to Jim. She had no idea that this little troublemaker from her past life had, under my guidance, grown into a responsible and filial young man. As for Alice, you still need to study hard, I couldn't help but say, patting her shoulder with a final reminder before Parting, none of your business. Alice abruptly shook off my hand and even pushed me away, her face displaying an arrogance never seen in her past life. Kathy happened to walk out of the room, saw the scene, and gave me a smug sideways glance, lowering her voice. Luna, don't forget, that little murderer is your child. Stay away from my Alice, she won't like you. I lowered my eyes without showing any emotion, after Kathy took Alice away. I returned to the bedroom. I clutched a small note in my palm, which Alice had quickly slipped to me when she pushed me. Mom, don't worry. Those brief 4 words struck me like lightning, leaving me frozen in place. It was written in the small regular script Alice had practiced for 8 years in her previous life. Alice, she was actually reborn too, but this surprise lasted only a moment. Soon, a chill began to spread through my heart. So, in our past lives, after Kathy and I died tragically one after another, my Alice didn't get to live a good life. Either was it an accident, or was it intentional? I couldn't help but recall Jim's demonic nature from our past life. He killed a classmate, killed me, and later killed Kathy too. Could it be that even Alice wasn't spared? I dare not continue thinking about it, constantly telling myself in my heart that even so, it was all in the past life. Now Jim is a principled and responsible child, kind and brave. What I need to do now is to teach Jim well and find a way to protect Alice, preventing her from being misled by Kathy's twisted values. Since Alice has been reborn, I can at least rest half of my worries. In her previous life, her academic performance was among the best, so in this life, even if Kathy delays her studies, it wouldn't have much impact. On the other hand, the expensive specialized courses she enrolled in could help Alice develop a more well-rounded skill set. Counting the days, it's almost time for Alice to be discovered by a director and cast in a web series, just like in her past life. Given Kathy's nature, she would ruthlessly exploit Alice as a cash cow, squeezing out every last bit of her value. It seems this time, I'll have to pass up this rare opportunity. The day Alice received the audition invitation, Kathy couldn't contain her joy and took her home to show off. When Jim politely greeted her with, "Hello, Auntie," Kathy was momentarily stunned. After all, in their past life, Jim had never known the meaning of the word manners. At the dinner table, Kathy eagerly told her dad that Alice had received an audition invitation from a director. "Dad, look how successful Alice is. She's going to be a star soon." "Alice, don't embarrass your grandpa. Make sure you perform well." Alice bit her lip, seeming a bit uneasy. Dad smiled and comforted her, saying, "Just do your best. She's still a child. What does it matter about being a star or not? My reputation isn't something my child needs to earn for me." I heard Alice is auditioning for the role of the young female poet this time. "Better dress simply and go looking fresh and clean, sister. The clothes you usually dress Alice in are a bit too mature for her," I tentatively said, and sure enough, Kathy's face immediately darkened as she impatiently pursed her lips. But before she could retort, Dad also nodded in agreement, reminding Kathy not to be too clever for her own good. A child should behave like a child. "Okay, Dad, I got it." Kathy forced a smile and chimed in, not forgetting to roll her eyes at me. I subtly exchanged a glance with little Alice. The next day, Kathy took Alice to the film set for the audition. I followed them in my car and saw Alice wearing a black, form-fitting, off-shoulder cheongsam with a high collar, her slender waist and petite hips accentuated, her red lips striking. Even her long hair had been carefully curled, cascading over her shoulders, true to form. Kathy refused to believe me and had dressed little Alice like a concubine from the Republican era. She had no idea about the events of the previous audition in our past life, and with her hostility toward me, she assumed I was just jealous that she had such a well-raised foster daughter. There was no way she would heed my advice. Sure enough, within half an hour, Kathy emerged with a face as dark as thunder. She walked along, angrily twisting Alice's slender arm, her face contorted in a scowl, frowning as if scolding her. Alice kept her head down without answering, almost being dragged forward. Clearly, the audition had failed. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and when I looked up again, numerous reporters had already emerged from all directions. Kathy immediately adjusted her expression upon seeing this, slowed her pace, and took Alice's hand, putting on a gentle and affectionate demeanor. However, sharp-eyed reporters still noticed the unusual state between them and quickly surrounded them. Kathy had to pull herself together to deal with the reporters. "Thank you all for your concern. Due to the intense academic workload and the role not being a perfect fit, our Alice will not be participating in this drama for now. I'll be spending more time preparing for the elementary school graduation exams from now on." Alice had been listening with reddened eyes, but upon hearing Kathy's words, her eyes suddenly lit up. "Really, Mom, can I go to school now?" "That's wonderful. Thank you, Mom. I can finally go to school." Alice burst into tears of joy, but these words left all the reporters present Utterly astonished, upon further questioning, it was revealed that Alice had spent the past few years busy attending various talent classes, leaving her with almost no time for actual studies. I don't want to dance, I don't want to practice singing, I just want to go to school and attend classes, but I haven't been able to attend class for a long time. I even missed the midterm exams. I even promised my desk mate I'd give her a birthday present, but her birthday was already half a month ago. I never wanted to be some actor or celebrity. At this point, Alice burst into tears, her face streaked with sorrow like rain on pear blossoms, and revealed the reason for her failed audition. The director thought her appearance and intellectual depth didn't match the image of a young female poet. But these aren't clothes I picked myself. I don't like this outfit at all. Alice's voice was childlike, yet her eyes brimmed with the resentment of someone far older. She petulantly wiped off the bright lipstick with the back of her hand, then angrily gathered her curly hair into a ponytail with a few rough tugs. I don't like wearing makeup, and I don't like leaving my hair down. All I dream about is wearing a school uniform like my classmates every day. But Mom said I look awful like this. Not at all. Oh, not sexy. She said the director wouldn't like it. Kathy's face darkened completely. She barely paid attention to the reporters, glaring at Alice and shouting angrily, "Shut up, you worthless brat. I've spent over $200,000 just on your special training classes all these years. You useless ingrate. You can't even pass an audition, embarrassing me in front of everyone, and now you dare talk nonsense. If you can't become a star, get the hell back to the orphanage." Kathy, overwhelmed with emotion, revealed most of the hidden truths from these years in her outburst. Alice's face turned slightly pale with fear as she kept pleading in a low voice, "I was wrong. Don't hit me. I was wrong, Mom. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have wanted to go to school." The reporters present were frantically taking photos and recording. "Ms. Taylor, is everything Alice said true? Is the Taylor family adopting orphans just to groom stars and amass wealth? Are you aware that your actions are depriving these children of their right to education?" Bold speculation. Is the Taylor family's rush to push these children into the entertainment industry an attempt to launder money for the Taylor family conglomerate? The reporters fired off questions one after another, their inquiries growing increasingly sensitive. Mentioning the Taylor family, Kathy finally became alert and fearful, composed her expression, and explained with an apologetic smile, "It's all a misunderstanding. I was just too impatient and spoke out of turn. Actually, whether to enter the entertainment industry or not doesn't matter to the Taylor family, as long as our children are happy and motivated. That's all that matters. I just thought Alice has great potential, which is why I had this idea. Of course, academic studies come first now." Kathy forced a smile, exchanged a few perfunctory words, then quickly left with Alice. From a distance, I watched as she helped Alice into the car, but then began making anxious phone calls before heading off in another direction. It seems she still has some sense of crisis. Now she's trying to do damage control as quickly as possible to salvage her reputation and minimize losses, no matter how fast she is. She can't outpace me. All the trending topic content was finalized by me last night and distributed to various marketing accounts, just waiting for today's photos and videos to drop. Within half an hour, they'll dominate the entire internet. My Alice truly lives up to her past life as a child acting prodigy. Her performance is impeccable. It was worth spending a fortune in advance to bribe reporters to stake out soon. Both Alice and Kathy's names were trending on social media. The entire internet was condemning Kathy as a vicious, two-faced woman with no maternal love whatsoever. Poor little Alice had merely escaped the orphanage to fall into another whirlpool of misery, appearing to live in luxury, yet in reality lacking even the most basic human rights. Clearly, Kathy only agreed to adopt Alice because she was beautiful, intending to profit from her in the future. The Taylor family was originally mired in controversy, but because I, as the second daughter of the family, also adopted a child and raised them well, it quelled the public's anger. The uproar was then seen as Kathy's personal actions, sparing the Taylor group from any repercussions. Meanwhile, the director of the audition crew also trended on social media. The core theme is dedication to duty and striving for excellence. After learning about the audition process, netizens praised the director for being meticulous in casting, not just focusing on looks but also valuing inner qualities, showing that the director is a person with cultural depth and artistic taste. This trending topic was, of course, bought by me as a form of compensation and repayment, because the outcome of this failed audition was something I had discussed with the director in advance. Alice first met the director, coincidentally, at school. It was precisely because he saw Alice's pure and ethereal appearance, focused on her studies, that he decided to invite her to play the role of the young poetess. Kathy was unaware of this. She thought the director had sent the audition invitation after seeing Alice's account. That's why she thought she was being clever by dressing Alice in a mature and sexy way, trying to please the director, one of those industry insiders, too clever by half. Alice and I worked in perfect sync, rewriting the script in this lifetime. Now Alice's situation is escalating and drawing widespread attention soon. Kathy was criticized and educated by the Education Administrative Department of the People's Government, listed as a negative example across the entire network. Higher-level relevant authorities also took this opportunity to warn the guardians of underage actors not to violate the actor's right to education. At this point, Alice could finally focus on her studies with peace of mind. As for Kathy, it was already 3 days later when she was seen again. She stormed into the house angrily, shouting Alice's name and demanding she come out. But it was my dad who appeared. Kathy, how much longer are you going to keep this up? Didn't I warn you not to be so clever? Dad's face was dark, although the Taylor family wasn't negatively affected this time. Kathy, as his eldest daughter, had caused such a scandal, which ultimately brought shame to the family. I stood aside, trying to calm Dad down. Kathy glared at me fiercely, opening her mouth to argue, but was cut off by Dad again. If you and that little girl cause any more trouble, get out of the Taylor family. Dad finished speaking and turned back to his study, leaving Kathy standing there at a loss. These words were nothing short of an ultimatum. Kathy had adopted Alice with the intention of securing the inheritance of the Taylor group. Now, seeing that Dad didn't seem to like Alice much, it appeared increasingly difficult for her to enter the entertainment industry and become a star. Alice seemed to have become a useless card, although she kept saying she wanted to go to school. Her grades were mediocre after wasting those years. Kathy fell silent. Alice appeared at the right moment, reverting to her old submissive demeanor from the orphanage. She lowered her head and shuffled over to Kathy, calling her mom. Kathy looked at her, her anger boiling over, and couldn't help but slap her hard. You little bitch, worthless burden, don't call me mom, get the hell back to the orphanage, you ungrateful wretch. I'm not your mother, I don't have a daughter like you. I'm telling you, I've kept a detailed record of every penny I've spent on you over the years. Even if you have to sell yourself, you'll pay me back. Kathy was scolding fiercely, and I couldn't bear to listen any longer, so I quickly stepped in to mediate, offering to repay Alice's debt on her behalf. But who would have thought that Kathy's anger only grew worse when she saw me? What are you pretending to be nice for now? Don't think you can gloat just because this little wretch is useless. Take a good look at what you've raised. After finishing her tirade, Kathy turned to leave. Alice, in tears, ran after her to pull her back, only to be shoved away and sent tumbling hard to the ground. Get lost. Stop hanging around in front of me. Go back where you came from. Alice asked blankly. Mom, don't you want Alice anymore? Useless money loser. What good are you to me? Kathy slammed the door and left. Alice was just abandoned like that, as the villa gate slammed shut. Alice and I finally couldn't hold back our laughter. Little Alice has finally returned to her mother's side. As for Kathy's every word and action just now, they were all clearly captured by the camera. Right and wrong, cause and effect, await future reckoning. My Alice can finally walk the right path. To avoid drawing Kathy's attention, Alice deliberately calculated her answers in the elementary school graduation exam, scoring only at an average level. Fortunately, upon entering junior high school, she and Jim were assigned to the same class. I repeatedly reminded Jim to look after his sister. Perhaps as he gradually enters adolescence, Jim seems to be speaking less and less. There's always a sense of distance between him and Alice. This sense of distance mainly comes from Alice. She remains trapped in the shadow of her past life, where I was stabbed to death by Jim, unable to break free, and thus her attitude toward Jim is always cold. Jim, unaware of the reason, gradually begins to feel a growing rift between them. I am deeply anxious about this but powerless to change it, so I can only pin my hopes on time. The days appear to flow peacefully, but beneath the surface, turbulent undercurrents rage. Later, Kathy started coming home more often, but she still ignored Alice, sometimes even making sarcastic remarks. Because Alice's grades remained average at best, and the video account she had built up earlier had been neglected for a long time, losing most of its followers. In Kathy's eyes, Alice was truly a lost cause. The frequent new and old wounds on Jim's body also made Kathy feel satisfied, believing he was getting closer to becoming a murderer. This matter is also a hidden worry of mine, because over the past few years, I have discovered that deep down, Jim has a wild and impulsive nature. Although I have tried my best to guide him in the right direction, who can guarantee that every impulse of his comes from a good heart? Perhaps freedom would nurture his growth better than restraint. So when Jim expressed his desire to join a freestyle fighting training camp during the summer vacation of his second year in junior high, I only hesitated. For a moment before agreeing, this training camp was held in another city, lasting a month with fully enclosed management. After the training, participants would compete in a provincial-level fighting tournament. Outstanding performers might even have the opportunity to be selected for the provincial team's reserve talent pool in the future. Before parting, I reminded Jim to stay true to his original aspirations and forge ahead. What lies ahead in the future is not our goal. I just wanted him to do what he loves. For the first time ever, Alice also went to the station to see him off, but as usual, she remained silent, concealing countless thoughts. After seeing Jim off, I gathered my spirits and began to think about Alice's situation. Becoming an actress had always been Alice's dream. Turning down that rare opportunity last time was already the result of a difficult choice for her. According to the events of the previous life, she would encounter her second opportunity this summer, is a role in a modern TV drama. In the previous life, this role directly elevated Alice to the status of nation's sweetheart. I don't want to force Alice to give up the life she aspires to because of Kathy this time. If Buddha stands in my way, I'll kill Buddha. If God stands in my way, I'll kill God. Having already faced death once, what is there left to fear? After making thorough preparations, Alice joined the team. This matter, naturally, could not be hidden from Kathy. On the very day the Reuters report leaked, Kathy made her appearance. This time, she completely dropped her previous cold demeanor and smiled warmly, just like when she first returned to the orphanage. My dear, why didn't you tell Mom when you joined the crew? Good girl, I always said you'd become a star. Starting tomorrow, Mom will accompany you on set. You're just a child, you don't understand how complicated the entertainment industry can be. Don't be fooled by those with ulterior motives. Kathy deliberately glanced at me sideways as she said this, her implication unmistakable. I smirked silently, watching Kathy like a spectator, curious to see just how thick-skinned she could be. Clearly, it was even thicker than I had imagined. Alice, how much did you get paid for this drama? If I remember correctly, 3 years ago you said countless times with your own mouth that you're not my mother and that you didn't want me anymore. Alice spoke with a calm expression, the childishness in her features already somewhat faded, though she's not yet 14 now. When you add up her past and present lives, she's experienced over 20 years of time, and Kathy's poor acting skills couldn't possibly deceive her. Sure enough, Kathy gave an awkward smile, trying to brush it off. How could that be? Mom was just saying things in anger. Alice, don't, then keep being angry. I don't really need a mother anyway. Alice sneered. How dare you speak to me like that? Did I give you too much leeway? Let me remind you, I adopted you from the orphanage. There's paperwork to prove it. All these years I've fed you, clothed you, paid for your education. Do you have any idea how much? Kathy's words were cut off mid-sentence by Alice. You've said it many times. It costs $213,600. Don't worry, I'll pay you back. I'll give it to you as soon as this drama is finished. Hearing this, Kathy's eyes lit up. She was now certain that Alice's acting fee was substantial, making her even more reluctant to let go. Then, as if by magic, her face instantly brightened again. Silly child, there are no grudges between mother and daughter that last overnight. What's all this talk about paying back? What Mom means is, you're still young and naive, so don't let anyone take advantage of you. Don't just hand over the money you earn from acting to anyone for safekeeping. Be careful or you might not get it back. Minors can't open bank accounts, so acting fees can only be transferred to a parent or guardian. Kathy must have been certain the money would end up in my account, which is why she stirred up trouble like this. Unfortunately, she was wrong again. Do you really think I'd stoop to taking a child's money? Dad's deep, authoritative voice sounded from the study doorway. Kathy, you've utterly disappointed me. Does your heart hold even a shred of familial love and righteousness beyond money? If I were to hand the Taylor family over to you, it would surely be ruined. Father's face betrayed no emotion, yet this casually spoken sentence completely extinguished Kathy's delusions. Her face turned pale, her lips trembled slightly, and her eyes were filled with unwillingness. Why, Luna, why is it still you? I clearly knew everything, controlled everything, so why is it still you? No, I refuse to accept this. Kathy seemed to be on the verge of madness. Her eyes were bloodshot as she fixed her gaze on Alice. I was the one who took you out of the orphanage. I raised you all these years. I spent money to nurture you. Alice, do you think you've grown your wings strong enough? Just a little girl who hasn't even grown all her feathers yet. If you don't obediently return to my side within 3 days, I guarantee the entire internet will know every detail about how you slept with big shots to trade for resources. You all can't stand to see me doing well, right? Then no one will have it good. Kathy has gone mad. What nonsense are you talking about? When has Alice ever been involved in such things? Fury surged through me, and I could feel my temples throbbing violently. Alice hasn't, but who would believe that? Exposed by her own adoptive mother's words. Do you think she can still walk this path smoothly in the future? Kathy smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with venom. Kathy, have you lost your mind? How could you slander your own adopted daughter like this? What about the dignity of the Taylor family? Dad stared at Kathy in disbelief, as if he had never truly known her. What does the dignity of the Taylor family have to do with me? It's not mine. Haha, if I can't have it, I'll just destroy it. Alice, think carefully. Either give me all the money you'll earn in the future, and you can enjoy a dazzling life under the spotlight. Either join me in infamy and rot in your first play. Alice's fingertips trembled slightly, her face pale. She stared at Kathy with a complex gaze. Beyond hatred, there seemed to be something else. Alice, don't be afraid. We won't just stand by. I hadn't finished speaking. I'll go with you. Alice broke free from my grasp and walked toward Kathy. Alice, I was shocked. I'm sorry, but I can't give up this path. I want to be an actor. I want to act in films. I want to live a life in the spotlight, even if it means truly rotting away. I'm willing. Alice's slender figure walked out of the villa gate just like that. For the next month, she never came back. I could only assign more people to keep a close eye on her in secret, fearing she might cause any trouble. Fortunately, for most of the past month, she stayed on set filming, as they had to wrap up before the school term began. Meanwhile, Jim was in a fully closed training camp, with no news at all. This past month has been excruciating for me. Kathy, on the other hand, is riding high on success. Few remember the events from 3 years ago now. Alice's leaked makeup and styling for the new drama have won hearts, charming and adorable, already gaining her a following of sister fans and mother fans. The drama hasn't aired yet, but she's already popular. Kathy has also learned to behave, appearing especially gentle and loving in public. She even deliberately reads books while waiting on set, trying to craft an image of a scholarly mother. Very deliberate, very successful. At least that's what the marketing accounts and paid trolls she bought are saying. Thanks to Kathy's efforts, her relationship with her father has improved significantly. At least there's no more tension, no more of that frenzied hostility like last time. I know she still has her eyes on the group, but all I want is for my Alice and Jim to be safe. The day Alice wrapped up filming for her new drama happened to coincide with Jim returning home from training. Kathy was bringing Alice home for a celebration dinner when I was just about to head out to pick up Jim. No need to pick him up anymore. Your son is now a gang leader. What an achievement, coming home with a whole entourage of underlings. Kathy gave me a sarcastic sideways glance and swaggered inside to tattle to Dad. I walked out and saw several motorcycles parked at our doorstep. A group of burly teenagers gathered at the door, each with sharp, aggressive eyes and an intimidating aura. Jim, so this is your place. Damn impressive. Jim, when are you treating the boys to some food and drinks? Show us a good time. Yeah, Jim. Jim had tanned 2 shades darker, his arms and chest broader, the sharpness in his eyes even more pronounced. There were new scars on his body and face. He really had a bit of a gangster vibe now. Kathy sneered in front of me, but when she actually faced Jim, she grew much quieter. After all, this teenager had already grown taller than her, and the muscles on his arms were astonishing. Most importantly, in her previous life, Kathy had personally witnessed how he killed someone. In this life, she naturally didn't dare to provoke him lightly anyway. She believed she had Alice firmly under her control, effectively holding onto a cash cow. Everything was just fine. Jim remained taciturn, burying himself in his meal after exchanging greetings. His ravenous, almost desperate manner of eating was downright alarming to witness. I seized an opportunity to tell Jim about everything that had happened to Alice over the past month. They were about to start school, and would be in the same class. Although there was still a distance between them, I followed the usual practice and reminded Jim to protect Alice. Now that Alice is living with Kathy, I'm truly uneasy, fearing she might harbor ill intentions and harm my daughter. As it turned out, my worries were not unfounded. After Alice wrapped up filming, she received several minor roles one after another, but Kathy's ambitions were too great. She was no longer satisfied with small fish and shrimp, so she actively worked her connections, even wanting to bring the underage Alice to dinner parties, and she did exactly that. One night at the end of August, the rain poured down in torrents. Jim didn't come home. I anxiously contacted the homeroom teacher and learned that Kathy had picked up Alice at 5 p.m., followed by Jim leaving shortly after. The homeroom teacher had assumed it was some family matter with the Taylors that led to both children being picked up early, so they didn't confirm with me. Outsiders only knew that Kathy and I were biological sisters. Who would have guessed we were already at each other's throats, sensing something was wrong. I immediately called Kathy, as expected. No one answered. 5 hours had passed since they left the school. I immediately told my dad the news and asked him to mobilize all his connections to search for them, though he was also surprised and anxious. He didn't understand why I was so distraught. I can't explain why I'm so frantic and terrified. It's because in my past life, my Alice died on a rainy night just like this. To climb the social ladder, Kathy lured Alice to a dinner party and personally drugged her drink. When Alice woke up, she found herself naked, thrown onto a bed, covered in wounds and filth. In utter despair and devastation, she called me, only to be told by the police that I had already been stabbed to death by Jim. She, with nothing left to live for, gazed at the storm outside and leaped from the 17th floor. It was already past midnight, and no one noticed. The relentless downpour triggered floods, with water surging into underground parking lots and elevators, submerging everything up to the first floor. Poor Alice wasn't discovered until her bloated body floated to the surface. This was the past life that Alice only revealed to me with trembling lips after my countless inquiries. This was her shadow, the pain she never wished to mention again. This time, as I watched the torrential rain outside the window, I silently cursed my own carelessness. I had thought I had altered the course of the story, but I forgot. Kathy's greed and cruelty had never changed. In addition to calling the police, I also spent a considerable amount of money hiring paparazzi and reporters from various entertainment companies to search every hotel, club, and other locations they knew about. Overnight, almost the entire internet became aware that both adopted children of the Taylor family had gone missing. The Taylor family could no longer afford to care about public opinion or rumors. Everyone knew what unspeakable things a young, newly famous actress might endure after being missing for a night. But for me, as long as everyone is safe, that's what matters. Paparazzi are truly paparazzi. Their sense for entertainment is razor sharp. Soon, someone claimed to have seen Alice at a private club, apparently with Kathy. Alice looked flushed, as if she had been drinking. I quickly gathered my team and rushed over. The floodwaters from the storm had already poured into the underground parking lot. The elevator was broken, the entire building had lost power, and the surveillance cameras were down. After a strenuous climb to the floor the informant mentioned, I found the dining table in the living room covered in messy leftovers. I searched every room but couldn't find even a trace of Alice or Jim. The heavy rain still showed no signs of stopping. I stood by the window, trembling all over, almost too afraid to look down. I was terrified. I feared that in the water pool at the base of the building, a pale corpse might surface. I don't know how I managed to leave. The icy floodwater rose up to my knees. The torrential rain pounding against my face made it impossible to keep my eyes open, yet at the blurred edge of my vision, I thought I saw a familiar figure. No, two figures. Jim, I shouted in delight, stumbling forward in an attempt to run toward them, but constantly tripping over obstacles hidden beneath the water. It's Jim. His shoulders are so broad and strong, his arms so powerful. He's still a child, yet already carries the responsibility of a man. Alice's slender frame was cradled securely in his arms, protected so well. Mom, I'm protecting my sister, don't worry, he smiled, with a wound on his temple, the blood washed clean by the rain. The scene brought tears to the eyes of many reporters. Alice lay in the hospital for a full day and night before gradually regaining her strength. Jim is in good health, just suffered some minor injuries. The disappearance incident has become widely known, with many reporters already gathered outside the hospital room. I initially wanted to ask them to leave, so the children could rest properly, but Alice said that some matters should have been settled long ago. She lay half-reclined on the hospital bed, recounting the events of that night to countless reporters and cameras. Kathy took it upon herself to arrange a dinner for Alice, even going so far as to pick out her outfit and perfume. She even used threats and incentives, saying that if Alice wanted to continue acting, she had to go. What was supposed to be a normal social dinner turned out to be anything but, until Alice drank the beverage in the glass. She soon felt dizzy and weak in her limbs. Her last conscious moment was a blurry vision of the so-called film industry tycoon leering as he reached out to touch her. Fortunately, when Alice was picked up early from school by Kathy, Jim, feeling uneasy, secretly followed them. While Alice was in the restroom, Kathy personally slipped the drug into her wine glass. The scene was all clearly captured by Jim, who had previously bribed a waiter to secretly place a phone behind a vase for recording. As for Kathy's transactional conversations with those resource tycoons, the evidence is irrefutable. Unable to find a chance to warn Alice, Jim had no choice but to take a desperate risk and break down the door after Alice was taken away. He knocked the person unconscious but was also injured in the process. Alice lay unconscious while people occasionally passed by outside, worried that the boss's men might discover them. Jim simply tied up the unconscious boss with curtains and hid in the room with Alice, keeping watch. He had intended to report his safety, but the storm damaged the power system, cutting off electricity in the entire building. His phone had also run out of battery after recording for too long. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that he dared to carry Alice and flee through the rain. They spoke in great detail, except they concealed one thing: that was why Alice, foreseeing such a setup, had conspired with Jim to turn the tables and expose Kathy and those so-called big shots for who they truly were. It was just that everything happened too suddenly, and they didn't have time to inform me in advance. Thus, my anxiety and despair became the perfect cover. No one would have guessed that the truth coming to light was all part of a scheme within a scheme orchestrated by two kids. That old bastard is still tied up in the room. He didn't lay a finger on Alice. Lucky I didn't beat him to death. If it weren't for the fight next week, I wouldn't have held back at all. Jim clenched his fists, cursing under his breath. My heart was filled with mixed emotions, with tears in my eyes. I patted Jim on the shoulder but couldn't utter a single word. The month-long intensive training had made Jim the strongest player on the team. He participated in the city-level competition and won the championship. The young players on the team admired and respected him, all calling him Jim. Next weekend, he will participate in the provincial team selection. The coach said that Jim has tremendous potential and a bright future. Jim was speaking enthusiastically, but my mind was wandering, filled with thoughts of how he had saved Alice. It was him who saved Alice. My Jim is indeed decisive and capable, destined for great achievements. In a daze, Alice and Jim had already taken turns presenting various pieces of evidence to the reporters. 3 years ago, after failing the audition, the video and audio of Kathy's furious abandonment after this incident, factual evidence of me financially and personally raising Alice. After Alice joined the production, Kathy attempted to reconcile but, upon rejection, became resentful and threatened her reputation. Video evidence of this, and video evidence of Kathy drugging Alice to strike a deal with a powerful figure. Additionally, Alice presented substantial evidence of Kathy bribing senior officials in relevant departments. Regarding the initial audition failure, the director publicly stated that it was the result of prior communication with me. Kathy's controlling nature made even attending school problematic for Alice, forcing her to reluctantly give up the golden opportunity to debut. Only by appearing completely worthless could Alice make Kathy temporarily back off. The director said that Kathy kept trying to push Alice into the entertainment industry, while I kept trying to send Alice back to school. The contrast between the two approaches speaks for itself. All of this left the seasoned journalists present utterly astonished. After all, standing before them wasn't some 20-something starlet, but a girl who hadn't even turned 14 yet. Kathy's exploitation is truly outrageous and insane. The law stipulates that if the relationship between adoptive parents and adopted children deteriorates to the point where they can no longer live together, the adoption relationship can be terminated by mutual agreement. If the adopted child is over 10 years old, their consent should be obtained. Ms. Kathy neither discussed terminating the adoption with me nor sought my consent before abandoning me. Moreover, during the upbringing process, my right to education was repeatedly denied. I will file a lawsuit in court to hold her legally accountable. Alice spoke to the camera with neither arrogance nor humility, her voice clear and resolute. Though the two children were young, their words and actions were mature and composed, each taking responsibility. The media has been reporting extensively, praising the Taylor family for their excellent parenting, with only Kathy being the black sheep. After the reports were published, the entire internet was abuzz with discussion, but this black sheep has surprisingly remained uncharacteristically composed. She still hasn't made an appearance, and her phone remains unreachable. I comforted the children, saying that justice would prevail and Kathy couldn't escape the law, but to our surprise, 2 days later, we were informed by the court that the lawsuit had been dismissed. When we saw Kathy again, we could hardly recognize her, having been trapped in the elevator filled with stagnant water for so long. Her body had swollen grotesquely, with her facial features distorted in a horrifying manner. According to the forensic ruling, Kathy took the elevator to the parking lot that night during the heavy rain, but was trapped due to elevator malfunction. With the entire building's power out and no signal, she couldn't call for help. She was gradually submerged by the rising rainwater and suffocated to death. Calculating the timeline, this likely occurred after Alice's medication took effect and she was taken away, just as Kathy was preparing to leave the scene. Unfortunately, this time she wasn't so lucky. No one knows whether she regretted what she had done to Alice when she was trapped in the elevator, helpless and watching the water rise above her head, but one thing she said was right: what goes around comes around. The despair Alice and I felt in our past lives, she has now tasted in full in this life. All I wanted was to protect the children with everything I had. In the end, karma still didn't spare Kathy. Journalists reported the whole story, and everyone was saying Kathy got what she deserved. She dug her own grave. Dad seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, his face filled with exhaustion. No matter how despicable Kathy was, she was still his daughter in the end. I couldn't feel any relief either. My heart was filled with unspeakable heaviness. Kathy and I were biological sisters, yet we clashed for 2 lifetimes, ending up like this. Perhaps the only consolation is that Alice and Jim finally bridged their differences and became as close as real siblings. Jim successfully made it into the provincial team, and what lies ahead for him is the path of a professional fighter. Alice, just like in her previous life, soared to fame as the nation's darling daughter thanks to this drama. The 2 children continued to shine brightly on their respective paths, with a future full of promise. Meanwhile, under my father's guidance, I began taking over the company's affairs. The company allocates a fixed amount of funds annually for charitable causes, supporting orphans and completing their education. I believe there will be more Jims and Alices stepping out of the mud and striding toward a broad and bright future, and this is also the greatest dream of my rebirth in this life. After hearing the stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.